Good morning, everyone. Expo, a virtual platform of our annual Black Expo. And today we are doing the Black Economic Forum. We're so excited to have you all here with us today. We have a fantastic keynote speaker, Kezia Williams, who will be with us later. And we also have an amazing panel of Black entrepreneurs that we're going to start with this morning. I am Amy Whitfield, the Executive Director of the State Office of African American Affairs, where we are working towards improving the lives of African Americans. And I'm very excited to be able to co-host today's event with Teresa Carson.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you, Amy. My name is Teresa Carson. I am the President and CEO of the African American Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. It is indeed a pleasure to co-host the New Mexico Black Economic Forum segment of this inaugural Black Thought Expo. Having this event on the eve of Juneteenth and at the 100th year massacre of Tulsa's Black Wall Street is truly befitting. So thank you, Amy, and your team for your foresight of this event and the opportunity to participate today. We're so glad to be here.
And we are certainly glad to have you. Thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning those things. I think it's extremely important for us to have a foundation of our history and to know why it is so important for us to have these communications, these conversations, because we need to remember that focusing on Black economics, Black entrepreneurship, Black recovery during this time and other times of racism and pandemic and public health issues is extremely important for us to be working towards. And so first we will have our Black entrepreneurship panel. We're very excited to have today as our moderator, Alex Horton. Mr. Horton is founder and executive director of the International District Economic Development, which is a local business incubator and a co-working space focused on growing our neighborhood-based businesses with a focus on media. He has experience working with municipalities who work with the business community and has spent time in insurance and risk management. Thank you, Alex, so much for moderating for us today. But I also want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing for our community. Please introduce, we turn it over to you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Teresa. It's a pleasure. Super excited. It's always great to see women of color leading big organizations and putting things together. So I'm just inspired to be here. I'm loving to be able to introduce this panelist. I know all of the individuals on this panelist, friends, colleagues, people I've worked with, people I've been able to share a lot of time with. And so I want to first by starting off that we're going to be talking about our solutions panelists. And to start that off is Jermaine Mitchell. Jermaine Mitchell served on DreamSpring's business partner and government relations specialist. In her role with DreamSpring, Ms. Mitchell cultivates strategic alliance with community partners that on the ground underserved markets to create access to capital and technical assistance for small business owners. So please let me introduce Ms. Jermaine Mitchell as one of our panelists. Everyone wave, we get to do the wave and the claps. Please stay on mute. We do not want to hear all the mutes on the mic. As long as you can do that. Next, I have the pleasure of speaking a friend, a colleague, entrepreneur, and also a mentor, Mr. Charles Ashley. He's the CEO of Cultivated Coders, a New Mexico-based company that provides technical training and curriculum in web and mobile application development, K through 12, children and adults in tribal, rural, and overlooked urban areas. Resources for coding, computer science, education. Cultivated Coders inception has won the South by Southwest Tech Startup, which is huge for a New Mexico-based company. That's a huge event down in Austin. Charles has spent time in the film liaison marketing. He's also done numerous stuff working with municipalities and government, and always has been a huge advocate for Black entrepreneurs, Black economics, and moving it forward in the background. So everyone wave, Charles, do the wave, do the clap. Welcome, Mr. Charles Ashley, as this panel, the third. Let me make sure I do that. Got to add the third, the three on there. Also, I'd love to introduce Miss Aletris Owens. Miss Aletris is the founder of the Women Glimmer and Young Women Glimmer and the Boss Women Network. She is an inspirational speaker, transformational coach, business consultant, and is owner of Elitris Mobile Restrooms. With a degree in healthcare administration, this powerhouse loves giving back to her community and uplifting others. Miss Elitris came to New Mexico, set it on fire. I would see her everywhere. She was working it. She came out here and just blew it up. Next, so everyone wave to Elitris. Wave, clap. The circle of applause, the circle of applause. Next, I get to introduce Miss Q, the owner and of Q's Cakes. She has done so much in here. This is the second time I get to be on a panel with her, so it's a pleasure. Ms. Myers loves for baking, started in Brooklyn, New York when she was 11 years old after serving 10 years in the U.S. Air Force. Thank you for your service. She started baking for friends, family in 2013. Albuquerque, the magazine, featured her cupcake boutique and red velvet cheesecake in the Mother's Day guide. Whew, if you haven't gotten those cakes, it's, oh my gosh. And her business took off. Her bakery has won numerous awards, and she has been featured in national magazines such as Pantry Style. Miss Myers was also featured in a promo commercial for Bite Club on the Food Network with Tyler Florence, among her many other accolades. Thank you for joining us today. Clap. All right. And next we have Taylor Soward, serving as the director of the New Mexico Small Business Development Center at Clovis Community College. She has worked in the private and public sector as a finance manager, accountant, and educator. Ms. Taylor Soward was recognized as Woman of Influence of Honor in the state of New Mexico and received the Outstanding Educational Service Award for NM Office of African American Affairs in 2013. She is the first female African American to serve as the Clovis City Commissioner. Wow, round of applause for all of the panelists. This is a great panelist, so much power, so much heat. I'm really excited to get this thing kicked off. Now that we know introduced our panelists, now let's get started right into the question. So our first topic is a myth of lack of talent in the Black community. What would you say when people say, well, there's not a lot of talent in the Black community? And go ahead, we have Jermaine.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. This is one of my favorite topics to speak on because myth doesn't even capture how untrue that statement is. What I'd like to share is that when Black people came to this country, we came because of our talents and skill sets. And over the generations, those talents and skill sets did not diminish, they evolved and grew. Therefore, to hear that Black communities lack talent, I always ask, show me the receipts. What survey produced that information? Because so many times those surveys are created by people who dictate to us what beauty is. And I have come to realize that that information is so inaccurate and so untrue. And the questions in the surveys are not appropriate to get a real answer. So I encourage anyone that struggles with that myth to know that, first of all, you came into this planet with innate abilities. Also, you are an emanation of infinite intelligence. Therefore, no one on this planet can limit the true being that you are. And we all have our own gifts and talents within us. And I think we need to surround ourselves with individuals who encourage and bring out those gifts and talents. I am complete. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Jermaine. Yes, absolutely. We came here with talents. Just watched that documentary, Hole on the Hog, and that was just a great thing, seeing where all our food came from. Some stuff that we don't even know. It was an educational thing for me. Thank you for sharing that, Jermaine.
I agree. You want me to jump in, Alex?
Go ahead.
And thank you for the introductions and good morning to everyone. It's great seeing everyone's faces or hearing voices or whatnot. But to answer your question or that myth or to answer it or whatnot, yeah, I agree with Jermaine. It's we came here as the most talented people probably on the planet, right? And they mined all of our talents and our resources or whatnot to build this beautiful country. But to piggyback, the issue also is it's not just a myth. Everyone knows we're talented. If you can fly all the way to Japan and see our influence. You can go to Mexico, you can see our influence. You can go to Europe, you see our influence or whatnot. The issue has always been we haven't had access to the types of resources that will allow us to invest in ourselves. Because so many times we look to lending institutions or these venture capitalists or whatnot, and they're not necessarily trying to help us. Even when they do fund us, they're more so looking to get richer. So what I believe in, and which is why I've jumped into the investor role, is if we invest in ourselves or whatnot, then we're going to invest for not just the purpose of getting rich, but for the purpose of helping each other. Where it's, let me invest in this person who looks like me, who speaks like me, who's walked the same walk as me, and then that person is going to do well, and they're going to invest in someone with a similar background. So it's not, the myth is definitely a myth. Jermaine is correct. There's no survey. There's nothing that's concrete that can back that up. But the one thing that is concrete is the fact that we struggle for the resources that most people have access to. So I think that's my goal, and I hope that's everyone else's goal as we move forward, is to build our own wealth and invest back in ourselves.
Invest back in ourselves. That was very, very well said, Charles. How about from any of our other panelists on this topic? I know for sure it's been a myth, because I mean, you just, like Charles said, our influence is everywhere, and being able to see all the things that we've done with limited resources and with resources, I mean, is astronomical. So the lack of talent is absolutely a myth. And how about you, Miss Queen? What do you think about that, Q?
I definitely think that's false. I think it's something that people use to make excuses for why we're not in certain positions. And if you just look around and see, just from the people that we have on this panel here, you can see how extremely talented we are, and we just have it in our DNA to make lemons out of lemonade. So whatever it is that we put our minds to, we go above and beyond, and we dominate. And so I think it's just an excuse, and we have a lot of amazing, talented individuals. People just need to know where to look and where to find them.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And how about for you, Elitris? Awesome. Well,
sorry,
great.
give me a second. Hold on. Sorry, I'm driving too, so that's why you're not seeing my face too.
No.
So I think that is not true, because I feel like we have to really fight to prove our positions where we're working at in the workforce, which I think is not right at all, because we went to school to get an education or even learn that talent naturally from our families or loved ones, And I feel like enough is enough. We all should have an equal right seat at the same table. And I think it's time for a change, honestly.
Couldn't agree with you more, Elitris. And it seems like it's like, hey, if we have the resources, some of the same playing fields, it's not a thing of talent. It's a thing of resource. And now that absolutely gets to tee up for our speaker today, which we are going to have Miss Kezia Williams. She's the CEO of the Black Startup and national recognized company serving African-American innovators interested in starting a successful, profitable job creation small business. Ms. Williams also leads My Black Receipt, which is a tech company that's launched to track spending of the Black-owned businesses. In 17 days, She led a team that collected over 7.7 million in receipts with consumers that have supported the My Black Receipt, Buy Black initiative. Miss Williams has been featured on CNN, Forbes, USA Today, Black Enterprise, and Yelp, and is regularly a speaker at the national conferences, symphonies across the nation, and much more. Miss Williams, thank you for being able to introduce. And I'm so excited to be able to introduce our keynote speaker, Miss Kezia Williams. Round of applause. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. I can.
Yes.
Oh, hallelujah. What a morning it has been. Happy almost Friday to everyone. My vegetation has a mind of its own, but I am so happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for the incredible introduction. I was toggling between two electronic devices. So when you introduced me, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I gotta go to my computer. But I'm again so happy to be here. First, I want to apologize because I'm speaking at a later time than what was scheduled. If any of you all follow me on social media, you already know how I feel about time. In my opinion, CP time is a myth. And I know we got some Black folks on this Zoom today, so you know that your grandmother done told you about CP time, which is colored people's time. And that is an excuse for you to pull up to Thanksgiving dinner at 5 o'clock when you know grandma told you to be there at 11 a.m., right? CP time is an excuse, right, for some folks to come to their 9 to 5 at 11:30 a.m. talking about, you know, that CP time exists. But again, like I said, in my opinion, CP time is a myth because Black people can be late, white people can be late, Indian people can be late, Australian people can be late. So if lateness is not a function of race, I believe that lateness is a function of being broke, because broke people do not understand the value of time, so they spend it indiscriminately, making every other person rich but themselves. So I want to thank every person who pulled up to this event on time and was able to just stick around and hear that dynamic panel, and also my keynote. My name is Kezia Williams. People know me affectionately as Professor Keys, and I bring you greetings from 2.56 million Black entrepreneurs across the country, but especially Black upstart entrepreneurs who I have trained in 12 markets. I'm not sure if you know the data, but out of 2.56 million Black entrepreneurs, guess how many of them have the capacity to employ at least one person? I want to see it in the chat, y'all, because it's going to be real interactive. Give me a number and I'll give you a hint. It's between 0 and 2.56 million. And I'm gonna be looking at the chat. So if you guessed in the chat or even in your mind, somewhere in the $100,000 number range, I'll tell you what the answer is. 109,000 Black-owned businesses have the capacity to employ at least one person. I'm going to put that number in context for you. In the Washington, D.C. area where I live, there were 256,000 businesses 5 years ago that had the capacity to employ at least one person. So what that means is that if all 109,000 Black employers moved to the Washington, D.C. area, they would represent less than 50% of business owners that could create jobs. So with my business, Black Upstart, we not only teach Black entrepreneurs how to start a business, but we teach them how to start a business that can create a job so they don't have to go begging other people to do for them what they are capable of doing for themselves. One of my favorite lyrics is Beyonce's, "I want to be the next Black Bill Gates in the making." But as I think about the context of what Beyonce is saying when she says that, it gives me the idea of saying that I want to be the next rich white man as an entrepreneur. But there are Black people who are starting businesses today who are not starting them because they want to be the next Black Bill Gates, but they're starting their business because the wealth gap is real. They're starting their business because they're enduring separate but unequal pay. They're starting their business because they want to be able to own their labor in such a way where they have complete economic emancipation in their personal lives. So today we're going to talk about 3 tips for Black entrepreneurs who are seeking to launch their business. So we're going to get into the first tip, y'all. So the first tip is that the 9 to 5 is a fixed income. Now I'm going to say that one more time. The 9 to 5 is a fixed income. So what that means is that you work 8 hours, you get paid 8 hours. You work 10 hours, you get paid for 8 hours. You work 12 hours, you get paid for 8 hours. And for Black people, for people of color, even to women who are listening to this keynote, you know what it means to go to work every single day and have the same diploma as your colleague got when they graduated from high school. Have the same degree that your colleague earned when they graduated from college. Have the same credentials on your resume as your colleague had when they competed for the same job that you occupy. But when your paycheck is submitted every Friday, every other Friday, and you compare the numbers, somehow they don't match up. The 9 to 5 is a fixed income, but it's a fixed income that doesn't pay equally for people who work in the workplace and are told to work twice as good and be twice as smart for a separate but unequal paycheck. So when we think about business ownership, we should think about it from the lens of business ownership is career insurance, just in case you decide to quit your job or your job decides to quit you. Let me tell you a little story about how I came into entrepreneurship and why I feel so passionately about it. My mom taught me the same thing that I just said, that if I could get a diploma, if I could get a degree, if I could get a good government job with benefits, that I could be successful during my life. And so that's exactly what I did when I graduated from college. And for 6 years, it was working out great. I had a career where I was working in counterterrorism, counter and weapons of mass destruction. I had a security clearance, top secret SCI, full scope poly. And I know some of you all are looking at me cross-eyed, like, where did you get this businesswoman coming up in here talking about counterterrorism? But I was in a good government job with benefits, y'all. And every day I would go to work for 6 figures, and I would go to work at 8 a.m. and I would leave work every day at 4 p.m. But I would be going to work every single day simply to earn that paycheck. And after 4 o'clock, I would be working to operate my passion. Again, I did this for 6 years. I made 6 figures. And in my 6th year of employment, my boss changed. And so I went from writing senior analyst reports, and my boss sat me down and she said, you know what, Kezia, I was looking at your resume and I see that you got a bachelor's degree. I see that you have some work experience, but I don't think that you're qualified to do the work that we've employed you to do for the past 6 years. So I asked her why. I mean, I've been doing it, so is it not satisfactory? She said, no, it's worked for the past 6 years, but moving forward, we need someone who's a little more qualified than you. So you will not be writing senior level reports anymore. Your new responsibility is going to be making badges for people in the office. So I said, well, am I still gonna be making 6 figures? And she said, oh yeah, you're gonna be making 6 figures. So I said, okay, give me the badge. A month passes by, okay? And I'm making the badges. I'm going to work 8 a.m. all the way to 4 p.m., working my passion 4:01 p.m. to midnight. And after about a month, she comes back to me and she says, you know what? I think making badges is above your pay grade. I think it's a little too complicated for you. So your next work assignment is going to be arranging travel for people in the office. Do you think that you can do that? So I asked her, okay, am I still going to be making 6 figures? And she said, yes. I said, okay, I think I can do the travel. I know I was doing senior level reports. I know I was working with my colleagues to keep the country safe. But if you want me to choose between Delta and American, okay, let's try to figure it out. Another month passes by and she comes back to me and she says, I think that work is a little too complicated for you. So I have a new job responsibility for you. I need you to get your chair and I want you to follow me down the hallway. And I followed her down the hallway and we stopped in front of a bathroom. And she said, your new job responsibility is going to be badging people in and out of the bathroom. And I just sat there and I said to myself, I've been working for 6 years. I have briefed some of the highest government officials. Getting a top secret security clearance is not an easy thing to do. My passion project had been raising money for then Senator Obama, and me and a committed group of volunteers had raised $250,000 for him in less than 90 days. And I began asking myself, were my skills valuable to my employer the same way that my skills were valuable to my community and to myself? But I told myself during that time that making 6 figures was enough. But after 3 days of buzzing people in and outside of the bathroom, I remember one day going home and calling my mother in tears and saying to her, I know what you taught me. I know you said that getting this good job with benefits was supposed to be the end all, but I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So if I quit my job today, will you support me? And there was some silence, because y'all know how moms and dads are. Because, oh, let me look at my retirement. Let me see what's in my 401k. And she said, baby, I support you. So I went to back into work and I quit on the spot. And I don't know if any of you all know how it feels to quit a job that you hate. It is a huge surge of exhilaration. And then when payday hits, you're like, hold on, wait a minute. And that's what happened to me. I ended up calling unemployment. I told them how much money I was making. I asked them when they were going to send my unemployment check. And what I didn't know is that when you quit your job, you don't get unemployment. And it became 100% evident to me that I had been letting a hand feed me. And I'm sure you all have heard this, but any hand that feeds you has the power to starve you. I had been placing my economic stability in the hands of folks who did not appreciate the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I brought to the table. It did not matter that I worked twice as hard. It did not matter that I worked twice as smart, or that I was twice as smart. When it comes to entrepreneurship and Black people specifically in the workplace, entrepreneurship becomes an opportunity for us to own our labor in ways that we haven't been able to for people who see our race before they see our qualifications. And so that's my story about entrepreneurship and how I was able to pick up the mantle. The second thing that I want to teach you all, right, is one, know your why. What's the difference between paycheck? What's the difference between purpose? And how can you own your labor outside of your workforce? Even if you're working 9 to 5, how can you come home and work 6 to 10, 6 to midnight in order to build your dream, right? In order to get the career insurance that I spoke about earlier. I want to talk about number 2. And that is, for every entrepreneur, it's important for you to use what you have, do what you can, and start where you are. People always talk about ways in which we should value the Steve Jobs, who was an incredible innovator, Bill Gates, who absolutely changed the economy with the innovations that he introduced to the community. But every entrepreneur started small. So with Black Upstart, I like to talk about the Black Wealth Blueprint. Who were those entrepreneurs that, in the absence of venture capital, right, in the absence of a bank loan, right, were able to build their businesses in such a way where they created value? Madam C.J. Walker, for example, did not have the benefit of having a VC. People know Madam C.J. Walker as someone who created a multi-million-dollar beauty brand, but she started under the tutelage of Annie Malone, who mixed chemicals, who mixed ingredients in her kitchen, and were able to create those products within their home and sell them to their community. All right, when we think about Mary McLeod Bethune, some people think about Bethune-Cookman University. They think about a college or a university, but they forget that she started small in a one-room schoolhouse. Her desks were not wooden desks that you sit there where you have a place to lay your tablet. Nowadays, the students sat on the floor in front of cardboard boxes, and they broke off twigs off trees, put elderberry juice through the twigs in order to make sure that they could write their lessons every single day. In order to pay her rent, she did not go to Silicon Valley. She sold sweet potato pies and meat pies to mine workers down the street in order to make her rent every single day. This is one of the earliest examples that we had of crowdfunding before there was a GoFundMe. It's important for us to understand the Black Wealth Blueprint has put Black people in a position where we had to make $1 out of 15 cents. I heard the earlier panel talking about the misconceptions that people have about Black talent. I believe that any people who can survive slavery, persist past Jim Crow, dominate past discrimination, and still emerge all parts Black boy joy and Black girl magic is a phenomenal people. You cannot tell me that Black people are exceptional when we can emerge from a system that monetizes our labor for free. And still, right, in 1910, the census reported that we were more likely to be employers than employees. We used the land that we had tilled for free for people who believe themselves to be our owners to till that same land, right, to feed our families. And these are the stories that we need to tell. We can tell the story of slavery, but what about those people, like the people who existed in Black Wall Street that provided the products and services to us that other people would not? People talk about Black Wall Street being burned down, but they don't talk about how Black Wall Street was rebuilt in less than a year. That is Black resilience. And for those folks who are like, wait a minute, you're not talking about contemporary examples, let's talk about my girl, Issa Rae. Y'all can watch Insecure, you can root for Team Issa, you can root for Team Lawrence, you can be on Team Molly. But here's the thing about Issa Rae. Before she was on HBO, she was on YouTube. She was using her 9-to-5 paycheck in order to fund her passion. She went to work during the day and then she went to work for herself in the evening. She got her friends to be the producers. She had talented people within her network be the people in front of her camera. She funded season 1. Season 1 was so successful that Pharrell helped her fund season 2, and her proof of concept helped seed the idea in people who were in places and spaces above her to catapult her to HBO. But she started on the free platform of YouTube. It's important as Black entrepreneurs that we never despise small beginnings. Your contacts can absolutely be your capital. Your network can absolutely be your net worth. The small idea that you have today might be the employing idea that you cultivate tomorrow, but it starts with the first step. And that's why I always say this. Every single entrepreneur that I know, whether you are a religious person or not, guess what? You are a person of faith. Because it takes a crazy person to embrace that. Oh, I know y'all looking at me crazy, but if you're an entrepreneur, you are crazy. And I'm gonna tell you why you're crazy, because I'm crazy too, so I can say it. For you as an entrepreneur to go to a person and tell them your idea, something that you have not created yet, something that might just be days old, you talk to them, they're looking at you cross-eyed because you're speaking vision to a person who can only see with eyesight. And some of you all miss that. You're speaking your vision to someone who can only see with eyesight, because as an entrepreneur, you were called to materialize the substance of things hoped for and evidence things not yet seen. And as an entrepreneur, that takes a certain type of gusto. That takes a certain type of fortitude to persist with vision when hundreds of thousands of people can only see what is in front of them. You see what is ahead of them. And so it's important to never despise small beginnings, because faith requires that you take a step before you even see the staircase. The third thing that I want to talk about is how there are people in this country who expect for Black entrepreneurs to pull up by a bootstrap while they pulled up on a policy. I'm gonna say that one more time. There are some people who expect for Black entrepreneurs to solely pull up by a bootstrap when they pulled up on a policy. And what do I mean? There are wealthy people in America whose families got rich because the Homestead Act seeded their family with free land. Social Security was not always available to all citizens, but some citizens, which means that they could retire comfortably on taxpayers' money that funded them every single month in their retirement. Most recently, the Paycheck Protection Program was a program that was created to help entrepreneurs keep their doors open during the pandemic. 41% of Black-owned businesses were expected to close during a time where the government was giving tax-funded dollars out to entrepreneurs and also its citizens in order to make sure that their enterprises continue to provide critical services. And small businesses like your lash girl, like your barber, like your hair shop, like you, if you're driving Uber, if you're driving Lyft, yes, you are an entrepreneur. If you're selling Avon, yes, you are an entrepreneur. If you're selling t-shirts, yes, you are an entrepreneur. We're at one point competing with Shake Shack and Ruth Chris. During the time of the stimulus talks, some of us were focused more so on the stimulus check and not necessarily on the stimulus bill. The stimulus bill contained within it policies that help resource Black entrepreneurs and some entrepreneurs in ways in which perhaps bootstrapping could not. So every Black entrepreneur should make themselves smart about what resources exist on the other side of your fingertips. Do not swim in an ocean of knowledge and drown in ignorance. One of the things that I tell entrepreneurs is one of the entities that are one of your greatest resources, and I heard this in the previous panel, is community development financial institutions. The Paycheck Protection Program provided up to $20,833 for solo entrepreneurs that did not have any employees, and it provided millions of dollars for those people who had payrolls that they could not cover. But a substantial amount of that money went to community development financial institutions, which are in your communities, even in New Mexico, who were chartered in order to help underserved entrepreneurs who will go to potentially a major bank and have a difficult time getting a loan. It is important that we realize what are the resources that are available at our fingertips. What are the policies that we can influence change? So the resources that are coming out of our checking account, coming out of our savings account, coming out of our friends and family's pockets can be bolstered by the taxpayers' dollars who benefit some, but not all. And the last thing I want to talk about, I know I said 3, but I got 4 on my heart. I got 4 on my heart. So y'all get a bonus. One of the lessons I like to teach entrepreneurs is the 6 steps to business creation. And I'm gonna go through these really quickly. I talk about them more in depth in my book, The Black Entrepreneurs Workbook, but I'm gonna give y'all some free game, okay? Number 1, always make sure that you're solving a problem. It's even better if you're solving a problem in the Black marketplace. Black people spend $1.3 trillion every single year. That should not be a blank check for other communities to sign. Make a product or service that Black people already buy millions of dollars. And if you don't, just make sure you solve a problem that people are paying for. Because if you're selling a product or service that nobody wants to buy, you do not have a business, you have a hobby. Number 2, okay? You want to do your research. So please understand that we have not even talked about the business idea yet. We've just talked about what problem are you going to solve and who else is trying to solve it, right? So you want to look up what businesses are out there that are solving the same problem that I'm solving, and how can I do it better, faster, cheaper, and more creatively than they do. It's always important to be looking ahead of your competition and not duplicating your competition. What if Netflix decided to sell a videotape? Who watches videotapes? I was in my grandma's house the other day. She had the VCR on the floor and it was helping to be a step stool for her to get into the refrigerator. My grandma is 4'11", I'm 5'7". I don't know where I came from, okay? The VCR was a step stool. You need to be looking past your competition, not what they do, but what you can do better, faster, cheaper. Number 3, You need to figure out what your business idea is. And I'm going to give you the formula for your innovation statement. What problem or what solution do you want to provide and to whom? And that formula is, I sell this product or service to this particular demographic of people. I sell Black entrepreneurship boot camps to Black entrepreneurs who have a problem creating employment. That's my jobs, or excuse me, my business's innovation statement. So you want to make sure that you're able to be succinct and talking about what your business idea is. Because have you ever talked to an entrepreneur and you ask them what they do? You 2 minutes into the conversation, your eyes are crossed. You 20 minutes into the conversation, you still don't know what they sell. Number 4, you want to make sure that you outline who your customer is. You don't want to say my customer is anybody who wants to buy my product. Okay, that's not the way that it works. You need to be specific. How old are they? Where do they live? Where do they worship? Where do they shop for groceries? How many kids do they have? What college did they go to? You want to get very specific about who your customer is, with the understanding that as a new business, they don't know who you are. So you have to go find where they are. It's called your beachhead market. For us, we knew that our consumers went to Baptist churches. We know that they probably graduated from HBCUs. And if they graduated from predominantly white institutions, that means they were part of the Black Student Union. We knew that they made less than $80,000 in the DC metropolitan area market. We knew that they shopped at Safeway. We knew at least 20 characteristics about our consumers, and we were able to put our product where they were in order to attract them to make a sale. Number 5. You want to make sure that you can tell a story about your customer. You want to make sure that these adjectives that you create about your customers aren't just cute words on paper, but if you had to tell a story about your consumer, someone could listen to that story and say, hey, guess what? That's me. And then finally, you want to make sure that you can create a minimum viable product, an MVP. And what that is what is the cheapest thing that you can make that someone else will pay for? One of my favorite entrepreneurs is Mikaela Omer. And essentially what she did was she created lemonade in the kitchen with her grandma. She put it in a plastic cup. She went and got a plastic straw. She put on a bee uniform. She's only 8 years old. And she went out on the corner and she sold her lemonade for 2 years before Whole Foods picked up her and her grandma's recipe and put it in a real bottle with a real label. How can you start small? Facebook didn't always have a like button, didn't always have a heart. At one point, Facebook was just for people in college, and all you could do was post your pictures and make friends digitally. How can you start small with the limited resources and get people to pay for what you have created? BET, for example, started with just a handful of shows, no more than 5 shows. Then it began to develop creative programming. At that point, it began to pick up more licensed content, but it started with just 5 shows. How can you start small? And that takes me back to my previous tip. Use what you have, start where you are, and do what you can. I want to give all of the good energy to every entrepreneur, but especially every Black entrepreneur that tuned into this cast. I always say the $1 billion dreams are not birthed with bargain basement work ethic. And so I want to shout out all of the $1 billion entrepreneurs who are listening to this. I know you are working hard. I know you tell people you are a CEO, but behind the scenes, you are CEO, you are COO, you are the secretary, you are the treasurer, you are the social media person, you are the admin person, you are the accountant, and you the attorney, and you only got 1 business card. You're working hard on your own, but just know that work ethic will take you places and spaces to help make your biggest dream come true. So thank you all so much for having me. I don't know if I have time for questions, but if I do, I would love to accept and answer all of them.
Such a pleasure. Round of applause. We're doing the virtual round of applause. Thank you, Ms. Kezia Williams. It was such a pleasure to hear that. Lean Startup, MVP. Let's do it. Takeaway. I hope everyone had notes. I was writing my notes as we get going. Tammy will put in questions in the chat box, and we'll filter them through and get it going. But we're going to transition right back to the panel, and feel free to hop on and answer some of these questions as well. Our next question is going to be, for our panelists, what is the opportunities for Black entrepreneurs in the state of New Mexico? What is the opportunity for us in here in New Mexico? Go ahead, Jermaine.
Okay, I am going to speak. By the way, that was a beautiful presentation. Thank you. I am inspired and encouraged, so thank you. But I work for DreamSpring, which is a CDFI, a community development financial institution. And what we have done over the past 27 years is to identify what the needs are for our minority-owned businesses. And one thing I think we have learned that I love sharing with community is entrepreneurship is a direct path out of poverty. And as a descendant of they were slaves. I mean, they were slaves who became entrepreneurs. I have learned from my family as well as from my job that there are three things we need if we want to build wealth in Black community. Number one, we need to network. We need networking opportunities, because just because I don't have the resource does not mean my neighbor does not have the resource. So in networking, we gather information together. Also, we need investors. And something Charles shared that was so valuable, we need to invest in ourselves. And in turn, we're investing in our community, and we're teaching community to invest in community. And then the third aspect of it is to actually build something. And I love what you said about having an idea, bringing a solution to creating solutions. And we need to build together. And those are the three key components that we share. So in answering this question, what we do at DreamSpring as a CDFI, we bring resources, we allow opportunities to network, and then we have conversations with our community, especially those who are looking to build. What is it you want to build? Whether you're starting a business, you're already in business. We offer 30-minute consultations to entrepreneurs who are thinking, this is what I want to do, but I don't think I have this equipment. I don't think I have this know-how. I don't think I have this education. I don't have this networking opportunity. We have board members who help us partner our entrepreneurs with mentors that can guide them. And that is the biggest resource you could ever have, is to have someone that's doing what you're doing and can show you how to do it better. So that is what I would share, just resources, networking, and also just investing back. It's not just about getting the money, but it's investing in self, in business, and building a better and stronger community. Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Jermaine. Thank you, Jermaine, for sharing that. Next, how about any of our other panels? Dr. Sandra, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Alex. I appreciate it, and definitely enjoyed the piece that I got from Miss Williams and Miss Mitchell. It was so great. It's so you've already introduced me, I'm sure, and so I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center, and definitely can relate to what both Miss Mitchell and Miss Williams had stated. One of the things that is always important when you're looking at starting and even growing your business is all the things that have been mentioned, and to also look at what you're wanting to do through a realistic eye. And the realistic eye is stepping out. We always tell people, when you are writing your plans, your business plan or your proposal or your financial or your investor prospectus, is to speak in third person, because we can get so close to it because it's our baby, and it is your baby. But you got to be realistic, because that baby will spit up and other stuff will come out the other end. Okay, sorry. But you got to be realistic about it. And that's what we like to sit and talk with our clients about. Let's see things. What if? Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. How about we'll go to our next panelist, Charles?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what everyone else said about our keynote. Thank you, Ms. Williams. You had very inspiring words and very real words, because I've been in this space for so long that as you were speaking it, I could see the years. I was like, oh, that was '06. Okay, that was 8, right? So you could see it. So thank you for giving me those flashbacks, PTSD as well, but it's all good. I would say, to answer your question, especially in New Mexico, and before I moved here, it was one of those things I would tell people. I said, New Mexico is a place where it's so untapped. You have all these people just walking on, imagine people just walking on dirt. They're walking on dirt every day, and they don't even realize what's underneath that dirt. They're just walking, hanging out. So I would come here and just hang out, meet people, network or whatnot. And the time came when I was like, you know what, I'm done with the 9-to-5 executive stuff, which was great. I said, I want to go to a place where I can go in there, meet the right people, and then create things, and eventually just hang out, like, retire at 46, which, I'm on pace. I'm close. Right, I'm on pace. And I said New Mexico, because every time I've gone there, and this is like a 3-year span, there was nothing new there. There was nothing new. It was the same stuff. So I said, I'm gonna go there. So packed up the family, moved to New Mexico. So New Mexico to me is a place of opportunities, especially as Black people. I think if you step back, like Dr. Taylor said, if you step back and separate yourself from the situation and just evaluate the landscape, and then go back to your shack or whatnot, research, do what you need to do, you can come up with things that people aren't even thinking about, particularly with Black people out here, because we're so overlooked out here that no one's thinking about creating things for us. They're just like, oh, just create it. No, everyone has a construction company or everyone is doing stucco. But then if you step back like Alex did, like Teresa did, where you step back and say, okay, we need a chamber that's going to be solid. That's going to be the chamber. It's going to be around with longevity. Teresa and her team did that. Alex with the ID, where the international district has been overlooked for so long, primarily with Black folks or whatnot. Alex stepped back and said, I'm gonna create something for Black people. That's the opportunities New Mexico have, is that we're so overlooked that even if it's created just for Black people, we're so dope, everyone else is gonna use it, right? So that's how I look at it. And yeah, that's it. There's opportunities for Black folks out here in New Mexico.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Elitris?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. I'm bad with technology, so. So I piggyback off everything everyone has said, and Albuquerque or New Mexico, where you want to say, is a great opportunity to start a lot of amazing things. I had in-home care from 2017 to 2021, and this year I opened up a luxury mobile restroom out here because I was afraid to use the manual portable restroom. So I was like, okay, I know it's out there, but it's not out there the way I just created this year, and it is so many entrepreneurs and small business owners out here. I even put a advertisement screen inside the restroom to help small business owners get their information out to the community when I rent out the restrooms. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew it was a need, and my contract worker, he did something completely different to where I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think about that. He's like, no, you need a hallway so the advertising screen can be here. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But after I seen everything, it's like, okay, perfect. And it's opportunity out here, especially in Mexico is, but you have to make sure you with the right niche as well too. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Elitris. Riches in the Niches. That's a book. Read the book. That's a great book. And plug in Kezia's book. You should read that. I already wrote it down. I'm going to buy it before I go to the next panelist. Q, last but certainly not least on our panelists. Thank you, Q. What do you have to say about opportunities in New Mexico for Black entrepreneurs and Black people in general?
I think we are in an amazing time. I know people might find that strange, but usually when you have situations like the pandemic and what we're going through currently, it always opens doors for new businesses, new ideas, just new everything. So I think that, like our amazing panelists said, we need to use this opportunity to think of things that people need and allow those to become new businesses. For instance, and there's a lot of opportunities for COVID testers, for monitors, for different things like that, things that we never had before, but now there's a great need for it. For myself, with my business, we switched to a lot of delivery options, curbside, different things to make so that people could still get our products, but still feel safe. So I think what we need to do is to look at where we're at and where we're going, and then make that into new businesses and new ideas that can really help people. So the opportunities are definitely there. We definitely need to look more into investing in the stock market and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, different things like that, because that's kind of the new wave and it's going to take us into the future. We just need to be smart about learning about it, getting the resources we need, and coming together to pool our resources so that we can build generational wealth and be ahead of the game.
Thank you, Q. I absolutely couldn't agree more. So if there's any
Is it possible
question,
to add some national resources to the list? Is that okay? I'm sorry. I need to come and visit New Mexico. I've been to Phoenix. I've been close, but not there. Like, I would love to meet everybody on this wonderful panel in person. But as we move towards Juneteenth, which is in 48 hours, there has been a calling of accountability for all of the corporations that made pledges to Black entrepreneurs after the public execution of George Floyd. I want to encourage every single entrepreneur who is watching this broadcast to not only hold those corporations accountable, but also access some of the programs which have since launched. Amazon just recently announced that they have $150 million set aside for Black entrepreneurs exclusively, and that application opens on July 1st. You also have Pepsi, who just launched the Pepsi Dig In initiative. That initiative is a $400 million initiative that will fund social justice initiatives, but there has been tens of millions of dollars set aside for Black-owned restaurants. Right now, they're working with the National Urban League to fund a Black restaurant accelerator where they will help you take your idea, launch it, open a restaurant, and then provide you with the advisory services you need in order to keep those doors open. So those are two major corporations that have resources. Also, JP Morgan Chase has Advancing Black Pathways. This is an opportunity for Black entrepreneurs to get access to either low interest loans that perhaps they wouldn't have had access to in previous years. We've talked about how Black people have issues getting access to capital, especially capital that's cheap capital, so low interest or no interest. Yes, go to your community development financial institution first, but then also consider the Advancing Black Pathways initiative. And then finally, from My Black Receipt, that's another business that I own, we're giving away $1,000 grants starting on Juneteenth to micro entrepreneurs who do not have employees. So Pepsi, Amazon, Advancing Black Pathways with JP Morgan, My Black Receipt.
oh, thank you, Kezia, for all those plugins. I want to open up if there's any questions for Ms. Williams and also for the panelists about any of these things that we just talked about, especially on the topic. We'll keep those questions going and thinking, and if something goes in, please pop it into the chat. We're going to go ahead and go on to our next topic. Our third topic is to do with the question of scale for Black businesses and the difference between a backyard Black business versus imagining of being an entrepreneur and actually growing a business. So how do you talk about the side hustle mentality that we always start off, and Kezia, you spoke to that so perfect, that we're getting the side hustle. How do we make this side hustle viable without putting a ton of resources in, right? So starting with that backyard business and imagining it and growing it, what's the scale of it to full-blown entrepreneurship and a business, and the difference between those?
Are we going to me first or just anyone?
Yeah, kick us off.
All right, I don't mind starting off. I think it's important for you to know what type of business you're starting. What is the difference between a SME, which is a small, medium-sized enterprise, which was only designed to serve a local or regional market, which goes after perhaps loan capital, or you can fundraise for your business. You know, you can crowdfund is what it's called on GoFundMe. Indiegogo is a couple of them. Razoo, if you're starting a nonprofit organization, so it's turning your contacts into capital. That's how you normally resource a small business, because it's not meant to ever grow to be that big. So again, think about your barber shops, think about your beauty salons. And then you have people who are starting innovation-driven enterprises. And those are businesses that were designed for scale. So you're talking about the backyard businesses, SMEs, and you're talking about scale perhaps. So innovation-driven enterprise, if you're starting an application, if you want to figure out you're gonna be the next TikTok, you wanna serve a global audience, then you're gonna be looking for venture capitalists, you're gonna be looking for angel investors. So know the difference between what type of business that you wanna start, so you know what type of resources that you need to pursue. Second, yes, you're going to start your business by just you probably. And so that means you're going to have to occupy all of the roles that I talked about earlier. However, you should never build the business in such a way that you're the only person who works it, because that's how burnout happens. If your business cannot operate without you, then you need to be thinking about scale. If you go on vacation and your business goes on vacation, if you decide to stop working, your business decides to stop working, you go to sleep, your business goes to sleep, that means you already have a problem with scale. And the first thing that you want to do being on a budget is look for consultants and independent contractors that can help you on websites like Fiverr and Upwork, where you can post a job description that people can respond to within the budget and framework that you have. Get someone to manage your social media. Find someone who could potentially help you with your finances. Maybe get someone to help you with your inventory. And then finally, with entrepreneurs, sometimes we fall into the trap of hiring our family. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to hire your family, but make sure that your family has the skills and expertise needed in order to advance your business. Sometimes we hire people because we love and trust them, but they don't have the skills that they need in order to take you to the next level. You wanted an accountant, but you hired your cousin can't even count. So always make sure that you have a job description. You're able to find somebody who can help you. Okay, so those would be my 3 things.
Oh, that was great. Oh, thank you for starting that.
I agree with that. Can I jump in as well, Alex, on that one?
Yep.
I think Jermaine, you probably know this well, and Dr. Taylor probably know this well. What I've seen through the years of whatnot with growing like multiple companies, whatnot, you have to eliminate that ego and branch out to institutions and programs that will allow you to grow, right? That are free. I mean, there's so many free resources out there. If you just do your research, that you can go sit down. It's like your PTAP. And the first thing I learned after my first company was like, hey, have everything in order. Even if you're not trying to scale to 1,000 employees, even if it's just 2 or 3 people, right? Make sure that your finances are in order. Make sure that you're registered the correct ways. Make sure that you're filing your taxes. Just make sure everything is in order. And most people say, oh, well, that's extra money that I don't have. But Ms. Williams said in the beginning, you're so crazy that you see this vision. So you have to be crazy enough to know that I need to have my shit in order when this actually works. So no one comes and takes it from me. Because if you don't have it in order, they will come and take your money. We saw it with the PPP where, and Alex knows this, me and him worked on a lot of this. There were so many people who didn't have their stuff in order to get that money, to keep the doors open. And you have people, from SBA to the development corps or whatnot that can help you in the very infancy stage. Make sure that you get it set up, because we overlook it because we're so anxious to get it going. But I'm a believer in foundation. Have your foundation solid first, and then go out there and run. So that would be my advice to any entrepreneur. Where it's the stuff you don't want to do because we're dreamers. We just want to go and do it, but get that foundation, because I'm speaking from, like I said, multiple companies. It's the best decision I've ever made, going to sit down and just soaking up all that information, eliminating that ego and allowing someone to help me and our businesses grow.
That was great. Can I jump in? Oh, sorry, Alex.
Yes. No, it was great. You go.
Charles got my mind going there. That was good. That was good. You know, I teach a workshop and kind of wrote a little paper on the business side of business. You know your skill, you know how to cook, you know how to, whatever it is. But if you don't know the business side of that, and that is the accounting and making sure you have that access to a lawyer, that is so important. So thank you so much, Charles, for bringing that out. That is so great. That's one thing we always tell our folks is, you know, you don't have to have a lawyer on retainer, but at some point you need to talk to a lawyer. Yes, you may be able to count the money, but you still need someone overseeing that to make sure that you're in line with your taxes and with those other things. And I always encourage people, take the first, now I'm going to plug in for my host, all the higher educations out there. Take that first semester accounting class. Do it as an audit. It's going to be time consuming. It's probably about 4 credit hours, but it will be well worth it because you need to know what your numbers say. You need to know if you're selling your product at, you know, $50 and then someone wants to purchase 1,000 of them and give you $20. But if it costs you $25, it's not a good deal. Not a good deal. So those are the things that you need to know. So that's, thank you, Charles. Appreciate that.
Can I piggyback? So, and I relate to everything everybody said too. And also I use QuickBooks, and with QuickBooks, you can share it with the accountant, because I didn't know anything about that until I opened up in home care, and it helped me out tremendously because it does graphics for you. It'll tell you in the positive, the negatives, it tells you your sales of what you're doing with whatever products you're selling and everything. And I love it. And at the time I couldn't afford a lawyer, so I used Legal Shield too. So it's different ways out there to make sure you're good. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Alicious.
I'm going to jump in real quick to share that one of our greatest learning curves during the PPP lending was when we think scale, so many minority business owners thought, oh, the PPP lending funds is an opportunity for me to scale. But the lesson learned was when you're talking scale, you need to know what the work is that it entails. And so many of us want to go global, but yet, what does that entail? And it is so important that we understand when we give our yes to doing the work, we understand what the work entails. So that's why I think it's so important to network, to find a mentor, to speak to people who are doing the work that you inspire to do. And complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Q, do you want to round us out?
You know, first, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on the panel and for all the amazing insight and everything. And I guess what I just want to say more than anything is just to give a word of encouragement to all of my entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs, because you know, it's not easy. And there's a saying that if you do what you love for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's a lie. You will work. You will work hard. You will just enjoy the work a whole lot better. It's nothing like working for yourself, being able to employ other people, being able to use your platform to be a blessing and to do the things that you want to do. Because one of the things that I'm able to do here at the bakery is to invest, to support other organizations, that if I work for someone else, I would have to get their approval, or I would have to get them to give the okay to do it. And because it's me, I can do what I want to do. So I just want to encourage you to just keep, pressing on, and that, especially if God has placed what you're doing in you, he's placed that dream within you, know that he is going to give you the people, the resources, everything you need to continue on its path, to continue to be successful. And understand, success isn't where you constantly do all the right things at the right time. Success sometimes means falling down, but getting back up. And it's not a straight path, but it's so worth it. So I just want to encourage you all, because what we're doing is needed. We're able to do something that our kids, our even I have a lot of people who are older than me. They tell me that I inspire them, that I encourage them. So what we're doing is needed. What we're doing is valid. And I just want to encourage you to continue to do the work that you've been on this path doing.
Thank you, Q. That was so well-rounded. Way to finish that thing off with a word of encouragement. Now we have a few questions for us. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll get right into it. To all the panelists, what has been the biggest challenge in opening your business, starting up their business, and maintaining your business? So a three-part question. What was the biggest challenge? How did you maintain your business, and how did you just get started in general for our business owners on the panel?
For me, the biggest challenge was definitely the funding of my business. I did it on my own with my own savings, and then working through a lot of the red tape from the city, because in my initial location I was starting from scratch. So getting all the permits and different things like that, and not knowing how to do that was really hard. And then also continuing to stay relevant, and to let people know that I was here, because there is another bakery in town that has been around for years, that kind of had the monopoly on different things. So I didn't have the resources that they had in order to put ads in the newspaper or on radio or billboards or whatever else. So it was really about making sure that I set myself apart from everyone, and I stayed true to myself, because like our speaker was saying at the beginning, it's so easy sometimes to kind of fall into the trap of doing what you see someone else doing, but that might not be the thing for you. And coming from another area, like coming from Brooklyn, for instance, certain baked goods work in Brooklyn, but they won't work here in Albuquerque. So it took a lot of me doing the research, finding out what worked here in Albuquerque, and putting my own spin on it. And then, a lot of what I do now is really about education, because people can go to Walmart, they can go to Sam's Club, they can get a cake for fairly cheap. So when they look at my prices, they want to know, why should they pay what I charge? And so I tell them, I pay my employees over minimum wage. I invest in our community. I use real ingredients, real vanilla. I make everything from scratch. So it's constantly about educating and staying connected to people, and letting them know that they're not just putting their money in some big corporation. The money that you put into my local bakery goes right back into our community and our economy.
Very well said. Very well said, Q. Drop the mic. Very well said. We appreciate all the work you do in the community, your hard work and driving and keeping through and staying through the COVID period, and pivoting your business, and just still being here. We're really appreciative. Anyone else on the panel like to answer that question as well?
I can go next.
Okay.
So just for example, with the mobile restroom thing, Alex, I didn't know who to call, where to go. I just Googled, and I had to call like 10 different numbers just to get the answer that I didn't need no license and permits, because it's a mobile trailer, so they can't really keep up with me, because it moves around. But I had to have insurance and other things, and in place, to where it was a lot. But this time, Alex, it's not a franchise, it is mine. And that's the best part. And not only that, you guys, I didn't have to fund it. I used money I saved, so I was able to pay cash up front and have a peace of mind this go around, and not had to have a loan for the franchise that I did at first. I had to pay that payment on top of royalty fees, so on and so forth. So this go around, I'm able to have a peace of mind, and I look forward to franchising it. The first day I hit it on the market, people ask me, so are you planning on franchising this? I'm like, okay, I just did everything, so bear with me. So I am looking into doing other things with it as well that I didn't, was looking at first. So I was just fulfilling a need in New Mexico and then went from there. So you just don't know who's watching, honestly,
Gosh, that's so great, Alicia. So now coming from knowing how franchise work, you're gonna be ready to go. So you have the franchise model. So look at that as also a benefit, right?
Right.
It's like that's also a benefit because now I know that type of structure and I can do that, and now I can hit that scale of what I do.
And improve it more too, because a lot of people look at franchise in a negative way, and sometimes it can, and sometimes it's it can't. It's not. You just got to know who to invest with, because some of them just look at it as a money making thing, and I look at it to making sure that your family can eat as well. So
absolutely. Thank you so much. There's one more question, and this question is, how do you outline your business plan prior to starting your business?
I'll hop in here. I think that you mentioned it, Alex, and that was the whole lean startup methodology. So yes, there is the business plan. I mean, that's going to be anywhere between 20 to 30 pages. Maybe if you're super lean on it, maybe 15 to 20 pages. But a lot of individuals will spend a significant amount of time writing an entire business plan. And by the time they get to the end of their business plan, perhaps the economy has changed and the needs of the community has changed. So now there are resources like the business canvas model that allows for you to think through all the different steps that it takes for you to start your business. And the page is just one piece of paper, and it asks you all the critical questions. What is your customer demographic? What is your pricing structure, your cost structures? Who are your key partners? What are the materials and resources that you need? And allows for you to go to market sooner so that you can see if people will actually pay you for the product and service that you have developed. And I strongly recommend that you take that route. And once you found that you can make just a handful of sales, then go to your local resources. Go to the SBDC that's on here, Small Business Development Center. Go to your community development financial institution that have the programs that you need to now say, I have a viable idea. I know that the economy will support it. And now they can help you develop your idea to the point where you could use financial resources in order to scale. This is especially important because it speaks to the last question. The biggest problem that I saw Black entrepreneurs having, a problem that I had to overcome, is that 2020 was the year of the pivot. A lot of us left 2019 saying we're going to be the first millionaire in our family. We're going to have a 6-figure business. We're going to go from 1 employee to 3 employees. We're going to have an 800 credit score. Then we got into 2020 and the virus hit and everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. Things are changing. But here's the thing about entrepreneurship, and I think the baker, I love everything that she said. You have to tell yourself that your purpose hasn't changed, though your plan might. So yes, you can still be that 6-figure business. Yes, you can still hire 3 people, but perhaps you have to go through it a different route. And that's what the pivot is all about, figuring out a way to solve the problem in a creative way, and maybe things will change, right? And the business canvas allows for you to be agile in that way so that you can meet the needs that are right in front of you.
I agree with that, with everything. I'll jump in real quick. So the first question of like how you start, maintain, and continue to grow, I would say when you first start a business, especially if you're in a community where it's so tight knit, especially in like Albuquerque or New Mexico, other places are different because they're so spread out and everyone's hustling and bustling. I would say when you first start something, evaluate your community equity, right? See all the things you've done, who you know, or whatnot, and then you cash in that community equity. Like, hey, I know a lawyer, I know someone who's an accountant, I know someone who's a banker. You cash that in because most people, if you've been fair and honest with people, they'll be more than willing to help you in the beginning because they want to see you win, right? To maintain it, again, get rid of your ego, rely on programs and institutions that will help you grow as a business. And then the last part is just like Q said it, you have to stay relevant, because for some reason, Black entrepreneurs are expected to say, okay, you started something that's good, now be quiet about it. You have to, this is your thing. No one is going to champion anything more than you, right? No matter, like your mom, maybe your mama. My mom is strong in that, but anyone else is going to be hard pressed that you're going to always be relevant to them. So you have to have a little bit of, you have to be a little bit overconfident in what you're doing, so people know that, hey, I'm still here, we're still here, we're growing and whatnot. So staying relevant does matter. Then the second part with your business outline, and everyone on this call probably are entrepreneurs, it's great. Ms. Williams, that one document, I agree with you. Like, break down what's going on. Like, go find the resources that's going to dial in what you're doing. But the one thing that I've learned in this industry is that once you think it, and then once you speak it into existence, the time is ticking now. Someone else has now got your idea, because I believe in the universe. Once you speak it, it's out there. So now the clock is ticking, and you need to actually act on it instead of just sitting on it. So I would say, just don't sit around on your ideas once you tell someone, because I guarantee you, you're gonna wake up a month from now and say, how did they know about that? I just believe that's how it works. So that would be my advice to anyone.
Man, so very well said. Thank you, all of the panelists. First of all, round of applause again to all the panelists, and Ms. Kenizia for doing this great keynote speaking. I'm lifted, I'm motivated, I'm fired up. I don't need no more firing up to start another business, so I'm just going like this the whole time, because I don't want to do those baby growing pains. It hurts, it's painful, my knees hurt. When she was talking about throwing up and going out, I was just like, oh, that's completely it. So thank you, doctor, for saying that as well. So I want to go ahead and, again, thank you everyone for coming to this, spending some time, sharing all this for our community. I think it was very impactful to share all this with our community, and the doors that are opening and the resources that are here statewide. Shout out to Clovis down there holding it down. So I want to go ahead and turn this back over. I'm going to turn the session back over. Oh, excuse me, to Amy. She's going to hold it down and kick us off for our next thing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being able to host you all.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, panelists, and thank you, Kezia, for being here as our keynote speaker. So many things that I heard from you all that are really, really important to our community. The power of networking, the power of community, the power of really using that. I loved what you said, Charles, community capital, to build each other up, and how, us boosting you all up as entrepreneurs is reinforced, and it's coming back to our community, just as Ms. Q said, right? Like, when we are investing in our Black businesses, we are investing in our Black community. And so I thank you all so much for bringing that forward, talking about how investors can be a part of us, talking about how we can create things specifically for us, and that others throughout the state will jump onto that because of wonderful business plans. And just really appreciated all of the very specific, tactics and skills that you all talked about that are really going to help those folks who are interested in being entrepreneurs who joined us today. But what I really want to make sure that we think about is how much we need to, as a community, be involved in making sure that policies that drive forward Black entrepreneurship, capital that drives forward Black entrepreneurship, community that supports Black entrepreneurship is part of our ongoing conversation. Is that, good government jobs, I like my good government job and I'm gonna stay here, right? But we also really, really need Black entrepreneurs in our community, and we want to grow that as well. And so very much thank you all for all of that. And now I want to turn it over to Teresa Carsons with the Greater Albuquerque African American Chamber of Commerce to lead us into our second panel.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to Ms. Williams and this wonderful panel that provided a host of information and jewels with regards to Black entrepreneurship. So this next segment of our Black Economic Forum is focused on building generational wealth in the Black community, and some of that was touched on in the last segment. Just some information, after 400 years in the US, Blacks only own 2% of the wealth and fewer than 2% of small businesses. However, we as a people make up 13% of the US population. So after this segment, I hope you leave with a call to action to begin the planting process of generating wealth for our children, for our grandchildren, for our great-grandchildren. And I also want you to remember that building wealth is not a sprint, but a marathon. And you will hear more about that as the segment continues today. So our moderator for this second segment is Dr. Jerron Campbell. He is an engineer and educator with over 20 years of experience in industry, education, and nonprofit leadership. Dr. Campbell is the lead founder of ACES Tech Charter STEM School, grades K through 12. And he's also the owner of Campbell Academic Services, a 501c3 nonprofit which offers ACT and SAT test preparation, as well as basic math, English, and writing courses to our youth, which is highly and very much needed today. He is also the board chair for the Black Chamber. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Campbell, for joining us today as a moderator. So please introduce our second keynote speaker.
All right, thank you, Teresa, for an introduction. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in today for the second part of today's event. I'm looking forward to an awesome talk as well as a panel for this discussion. Joining us today is Mr. Chad Cooper, and I think that everyone has his bio in the program, but I'll point out some of the highlights from that. Mr. Cooper is born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. He did his undergrad at Middlebury College, and he's earned an MBA right here in Albuquerque at University of New Mexico. Today, he is a financial advisor with Gateway Financial Advisors in Albuquerque. With over 18 years of experience, his practice focuses on retirement income, investment, and insurance planning strategies for individuals and organizations. Chad is a friend of mine here in the community. He's a great family man. He's definitely committed, not only to his clients, but to community. He serves on the board with myself and Teresa, well, with myself and others for the Black Chamber here in Albuquerque. He's also just finished as the president of the UNM Alumni Association, and currently he's president-elect of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, New Mexico chapter. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Chad Cooper, who's our keynote speaker for this second segment.
I almost did the left on mute thing. Thanks, Jerron, I appreciate it. Technically, I have 13 more days as president of the UNM Alumni Association before I am proud to say I get to hand over the reins of that organization to my brother, Mike Silva. So I am excited about that as well. And I appreciate everybody having me here today to talk. Once I get into the actual presentation, I'll be sharing my screen. I've got some slides to share with everyone. But before I get started, I just wanted to let everyone know just how grateful I am to the Chamber and Teresa for the opportunity to discuss this topic in particular. Jerron mentioned I'm from New Orleans, and when Katrina hit, it was a very personal event for me and for my family. Our family had to evacuate. My father, for a number of reasons, who's a disabled veteran, did not evacuate. And there were some family issues there, but he ended up going missing for about a week. And we didn't actually talk to or make contact with my father for over a week. He was down at the convention center. But during that week of not only not knowing where my father was, but also seeing all of our people, all these Black people stranded, with very little government help, very little government assistance, very little, what seemed like very little compassion. It became pretty clear to me that we needed to do something. We needed to do things ourselves to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves financially. We started doing financial literacy programs for African Americans in Albuquerque, and anything that I can do to provide these programs. I know that we do them with Teresa in the chamber now. And so, again, I just appreciate this opportunity. I'm looking forward to sharing what I've seen and what I've learned over the last 18 years as a financial planner. So I'm going to start the presentation. I'm going to do a screen share here, and I'm actually going to start with some historical references just to frame out exactly what it is that we are talking about. So if you give me a second here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, make sure I'm looking at the right screen. And okay, so can everybody see that? I'll go ahead and take that as a yes. All right. You know, I talked to Teresa and we were talking about this idea of building wealth in the Black community. And the more that I prepared for this presentation, it became evident to me that it's one thing to build wealth, but if we're really talking about wealth in the concept of a community, we really need to be talking about building intergenerational wealth in the Black community. And I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that and take a little bit of a historical perspective. But the first thing that we want to do is just answer the question, well, what is wealth? And there are a number of ways that we can define that. Okay? It can be defined as the sum of resources that are available to a household at any time. When people discuss the meaning of wealth, they're usually referring to financial security, right? Through building their money, building their assets, having the ability to do the things that we want to do. Your wealth can include your savings, your property, your investments. That can be real estate. It could be bonds. It could be CDs, mutual funds, annuities. It could be stocks. There are a lot of different ways that we can accumulate assets to build wealth. And then there's the idea of what it means to be or considered wealthy. Wealthy, it just means having an abundance of those assets, right? It means having the ability to generate money for yourself or through the existing assets, or having the assets earn money on themselves. And that can be done from earnings on stocks, income producing investment portfolios, real estate producing or income producing real estate, intellectual property rights if you own a business, or just having multiple income streams. So there's a number of ways that assets can be generated or grow. And then there are the historical impediments that have impacted us even today, and how Black wealth is built. We start with slavery, and then following slavery, there was the Freedmen's Savings Bank debacle, essentially, where freed slaves, Black people, were able to put money in banks for the first time. But over time, there was congressional mismanagement that led to over 61,000 depositors losing close to $3 million in 1874. So we're talking about a significant amount of money that was lost for people who were emblematic of that first rise of Black property owners. And then there were the Black codes, which limited or denied Black people various rights, right? To testify against white people, serve on juries, vote, start jobs without the approval of previous employers. Those were ultimately repealed in 1866 at the beginning of Reconstruction. There was the Tulsa massacre, right? Some of these things, a lot of these issues we don't learn about in school. Tulsa is one of those issues that has come to the forefront in recent months. We know about redlining, Black people being denied mortgage loans based on their race, based on location. Reports that still happens today, but what's clear is that areas that were redlined in the 1930s still today remain disproportionately poor, disproportionately Black. And then there's the GI Bill, right? 1944 sounded like a great idea, but in the end, Black veterans weren't allowed or able to make use of the housing provisions of the GI Bill because Black people, or because banks generally wouldn't make loans for mortgages in Black neighborhoods. And so Black people were excluded from the suburbs due to racism, due to deed covenants. But in short, the GI Bill helped foster a long-term boom of white wealth, but did almost nothing to help build Black wealth. So these issues, the history matters when we talk about contemporary inequality, in part because its legacy is passed down from generation to generation mainly through unequal monetary inheritances, which make up a great deal of current wealth. In 2020, Americans are projected to inherit about $765 billion in gifts and bequests. Inheritances account for roughly 4% of annual household income, much of which goes untaxed by the US government. And I'll repeat that. Much of intergenerational wealth transfers untaxed or taxed very little by the US government. And that becomes critically important, and why I changed the name of this presentation to creating intergenerational wealth. But let's take a look and see just how large and persistent these racial gaps are. So this first figure that I'm showing is showing median net worth by race and ethnicity going back from 1989 to 2016. And what's critical here is that the median net worth for white households has far exceeded that of Black household. Whether we went through recessions, booms over the last 30 years, the movements, while the movements in the white wealth, if you're looking at the lines there on the top, while the movements in the white wealth are easier to see because the scale is bigger, during this most recent economic downturn, median net worth declined by more for Black families. 43%, there was a 44.3% decline from 2007 to 2013 than for white families, which declined at 26%. And when we go all the way back to the beginning of the century, the ratio of white family wealth to Black family wealth is actually higher today than it was at the start of the century. This next chart is showing median net worth by the age of the household heads. And white adults tend to be older. The median age for white adults is 55. The median age for African American adults, 49. And older people tend to have more wealth. But what this chart is showing is that the wealth gap remains when looking even within specific age groups. The typical young adult, age 18 through 34, of either race is going to have very little wealth because they're younger. But the gap rises and expands quickly the older people get. And by the time you get to ages 65 to 74, the average median white wealth is at 302,000, while 46,000 for Black wealth. And the last chart I'm going to show is median net worth by household income. So basically what we're doing is looking at what are those factors that could contribute to or modify even net worth. And what we're seeing is that regardless whether it's just general race, whether it's age, whether it's household income, these wealth gap differences persist. So with wealth being the sum of resources available to a household at any point in time, it's also influenced by income. But those two things aren't always perfectly correlated. Two households can have the same income, But the household with fewer expenses or more accumulated wealth from past income or again, inheritances will have more wealth. So this chart again is showing median net worth at different points in the family income level. And what's evident is that the racial wealth gap remains even for families with the same income. For those in the top 10% by income, only 3.6% of those people are Black. And that racial wealth gap is still large as you go down the line. But within that top 10%, the average wealth for white families is at roughly about 1.8 million versus 343,000 for Black families. And again, that racial wealth gap exists in every income group except for the very bottom 20%, where the median net worth is zero for everyone. So why are high and middle income white families so much wealthier than Black families with the same incomes? There's a few reasons, but again, white families receive much larger inheritances on average than Black families. So the economists shown here on the screen, Derek Hamilton, Sandy Darity, they concluded that inheritances and other intergenerational transfers account for more of the racial wealth gap than any other demographic or socioeconomic indicator. Black families also who make it to the top of an income distribution any particular year are more likely than white families to drop out of that level in subsequent years, and their respective wealth levels will reflect that. And all of this matters because wealth confers benefits that go beyond those that come with family income. Wealth is a safety net that keeps a life from being derailed by temporary setbacks and loss of income. And this safety net allows people to some flexibility, right? Having that safety allows you to take risks with your career if you want to start a business. You have a buffer when you don't have success right away. Having wealth or having flexibility, having a safety net, an emergency fund, all those things are critical to able to build additional wealth. Wealth affords people opportunities to be entrepreneurs. And again, the income of wealth is taxed at much lower rates than income from actual work, which means that wealth begets more wealth. There's no single simple explanation for the racial wealth gap. It's not like I showed in the charts. It's not explained away by differences in educational attainment. It's not accounted for by debt in a lot of cases. Actually, white families tend to have higher levels of debt than Black families. It's not even fully accounted for by differences of income like we saw in the earlier chart. But the fact that intergenerational transfer of wealth is lightly taxed means that there are these historical gaps over generations. So, this history matters for contemporary inequality, in part, again, because its legacy is passed down from generation through these unequal monetary inheritances. But when we look at inheritances as a major driving factor, what are some of the things that we can do? When we talk about building Black wealth, some of the concepts I'm going to show you here coming up are not novel. They're not new concepts. It's what majority communities do every day. It's what we see with our clients on a daily basis. It's the services that financial planners provide on a daily basis. So I want to start with some basic foundational things. What are some of the things that we can do to start to create wealth, protect ourselves, and in short, build for our financial futures. And there's three main areas. There's planning for today. I'm gonna use see if I can use the laser pointer here, whatever that little thingy is. So there's planning for today. So the way to kind of picture this is think about building your financial future in terms of building a house. You know, if you were building your home from the ground up, your bottom part would be your foundation, right? So these are the things that you have to have in place in order to do the things that you want to do. And if this bottom part, if this foundation is shaky, then it makes the entire structure shaky. So the first part, planning for today, that's all those concepts that you've probably already covered today or that we'll cover in the panel. That's budgeting. That's making sure that you're living within your means, that you have adequate savings for emergency funds. If you're working in a W-2 job, that means having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up so that you can adequately cover those little annoying things that happen. If you have to go get 4 new tires on your car, or if you have to replace your air conditioner, you have a major appliance issue at your home. If you're an entrepreneur, that means having 6 to 12 months of expenses saved up. It also prevents you from having to tap into credit cards or tap into investments where you have to pay additional fees or taxes in order to access those dollars. But again, it also means limiting your debt and having the discipline to save and limit your expenses as much as possible. And then there's the second part of the foundation, which is protecting against risk. And this part is protecting yourselves from those things that can wipe you out financially in a day. So, what are those things? That could be, a major health crisis. So having adequate health insurance. Maybe it's a potential liability risk. Some of you, I know I do. I have a 17-year-old son who drives. So making sure that you have adequate insurance in place to protect yourselves in the event that a significant liability happens either in your car or in your home, or inside of your business. Someone comes into your business and slips and falls, making sure that you have the adequate insurance protection to protect yourselves in the event that something like that happens. Or it could be a premature death of a loved one, a spouse, or especially the death of the primary breadwinner inside the home. Could be a disability where you're not able to work anymore, or a potential long-term care need. So all of those things, all those potential risks, are the risks that you want to plan for. You either need to plan for it by having adequate savings available, or plan for it by transferring that risk to an insurance company. And we'll talk about those concepts in a little bit more as well. But assuming that your foundation is solid, then we can look at planning more for the future and all of those intergenerational wealth building activities that we would like to get into, like retirement planning, investing, education fundings, setting aside money for college for our children, setting up a business, taking vacations, planning weddings, purchasing homes. All those things that we would like to do are critical in the wealth building process, but also contingent on making sure that none of these foundational issues potentially wipe us out. And I'll take a pause here. I don't know if we're doing Q&A, Jerron, but if questions pop up in the chat, feel free to interrupt, and I'll answer. I can answer the questions as we go.
Okay, noted.
Thanks. So Jerron mentioned, I've been a financial planner for 18 years, and there are 4 primary things that I've seen in those 18 years that are pretty consistent across my clients, especially my clients, my highest net worth clients. And they typically utilize some combination of these 4 tools to build wealth. But what's also critical about these 4 tools is that they all have one common theme, and that's this concept of ownership. When you invest, you actually own a percentage of the companies that you invest in through stock ownership. If you have a business, you own the business. And as an entrepreneur, you reap the benefits of the profits of the business. Owning property, if you own your home, you are the owner of that property. And again, you reap the benefits of the equity that builds up in the potential sale or potential income if you're renting out that property. And with life insurance, again, if you own a permanent life insurance policy, you own that asset. All 4 of these tools together are significant to, I believe, help build intergenerational wealth within our communities. But again, those highest net worth folks have some combination of these in some fashion. So what I'll do in the balance of my time is go through each one of these and just hit on some of the high points of each one of these. And the first is investing. And when we invest, we're saving money to pay our future selves. And I know sometimes we look back at whatever age we're at and we say, man, I wish I had set more money aside when I was in my 20s, or I wish I had set more money aside when I was in my 30s. Your biggest asset when it comes to investing is time and compound interest. So we'll talk about compound interest here in a second. But the idea of growing money over time so that you can, build wealth, build assets, and also be able to enjoy your retirement years. So what's critical about compound interest compared to simple interest, or what happens when you invest, is that as your money grows, if you look at the column here on compound interest compared to this column on simple interest, as your money grows with compound interest, you're not just earning money on your original deposit, you're actually earning on your earnings. So compared to the simple interest column, every year that, this is assuming a 10% annual growth, every year that your money earns, you're now earning on the interest that you've earned as well. So as your money compounds year in and year out, over a 10-year period at 10%, you earn more through your interest compounding compared to simple interest. There's a concept when it comes to investing called the rule of 72. And that is actually not in the slide, but the rule of 72 just says that if you take the number 72 and you divide it by a rate of return, like let's say, 9%, that your answer, 72 divided by 9, is 8, right? 8%, or I'm sorry, your answer ends up being the number of years that it takes to double your money. So why is that important? If you're in your 20s or in your 30s and you know that stocks historically have grown roughly by about 9 or 10% per year, and you know it takes about 8 years for your money to double, depending on your age, you can roughly guesstimate how many doubling opportunities you could potentially have before your retirement years. And the older you are when you start investing, the fewer opportunities you have to double your money. So again, it's important and it's critical to start investing as early as possible. As a financial advisor, some of my very first clients, they were just setting aside what they could. We were all kind of young, and my friends were working with me, and they were setting aside $25 a month. The first few years, and it grew to $50 a month. Then it grew to maybe a couple hundred. But at some point, they had to start, and they started somewhere. So looking at the Q&A here, if you have a small amount to invest, is it better to put into a retirement investment or into something not limited? Amy, the answer to that really is it depends. It depends on what your needs are, and it's actually a good segue. I'm just going to answer that by going to the next slide, Amy, because when we look at where are the places to invest, there are a ton of different options where money goes. The traditional ideas are, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and asset allocation portfolios. And all that asset allocation portfolios are just a collection of mutual funds. So if you've got a relatively small amount to invest and you don't know how to research stocks, which is very common, or researching mutual funds, you can actually set money aside inside of an asset allocation portfolio that's managed, that does the job of a diverse portfolio. There are options for annuities. If you're working at a job, chances are your employer offers some sort of what we call a qualified retirement plan, like a 401k, a Roth 401k if you work for a nonprofit organization, or for a government entity. There's a chance that you have a 403b. If you work for the federal government, you have TSP. So there are different options for how you can set money aside. And to go back to your question, Amy, it depends on what your short-term needs are for the money. If you have money that you won't have to or won't need to touch until age 59 and a half, at retirement age, when you're able to access these retirement accounts, then by all means, put the money there, because there are tax advantages and tax benefits to doing that. If you know that you may potentially need that money, you want to invest it, but you could potentially need it because you don't have a significant amount of savings, then you may want to put it in one of the more traditional investment types, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, a conservative asset allocation portfolio, because you want it to grow, but you also know that you may need that liquidity. These accounts are more liquid, generally speaking, if they're not in a retirement account, like an IRA or 401k. Annuities, IRAs, 401ks, those are typically accounts and dollars that you won't be able to access until you hit age 59 and a half. So hopefully I answered that, Amy. But yeah, feel free to pop in questions. We'll answer them along the way. So moving on though, from investing in stocks, another way that we can build wealth inside of our communities is through business ownership. And that may not be an option for everyone, but again, it's another pillar in a way that we can build wealth in the community. So what are some of the benefits or some of the the added value of owning a business? I know our previous speaker talked quite a bit about business ownership. You can control your own destiny. You can control your schedule, your work-life balance. But for me, for a lot of business owners, we get into ownership in order to reap the benefits and reap the financial rewards from our efforts. As a business owner, you get the majority of the profits of the business compared to working for someone else. And you get to work in an area that you're passionate about, and you maintain control as a business owner. So definitely a lot of benefits to owning a business, and also a lot of resources that are available to you in the community. Again, I'm sure that we've covered some of these in previous conversations and previous panels, but a lot of as an entrepreneur, aside from my financial practice, these are some of the resources that I've utilized for our other business. Obviously working with Teresa in the chamber and relying on the expertise there, working with the resources at the SBA. The SBDC has been fantastic in helping us get our business off the ground. I've got a coach at the SBDC, working with my coach at SCORE, getting some of that real world advice from the retired business owners at SCORE. And then since our business is in the government space, relying on some of the resources at our local PTAC. So there are a lot of resources available to you, and they're all free. And all these resources are people that are looking to help and willing to help and want to help. So we are fortunate to have a lot of these resources available. And when we talk about business, I came across this bit of information as well. There's a June 1, 2021 statement that was released by the Biden-Harris White House. And the administration is planning to use the government's purchasing power to drive an additional $100 billion to small disadvantaged business owners. With the federal government being the largest consumer of goods in the world, government buys everything from software to elevator services to financial and asset management. The federal procurement process is one of the most powerful tools to advance equity and build wealth in our underserved communities. But only 10% of federal agencies' total eligible contracting dollars typically go to small disadvantaged businesses. So as the administration is looking to help close some of these wealth gap issues, they are working to extend and grow contract opportunities for small disadvantaged businesses over the next 5 years. So it is a great opportunity for business owners, especially business owners of color, to pursue and try to get into the federal procurement space. So another place where we can build wealth is through property ownership. It's always been part of the American dream to own a home. Benefits of home ownership include appreciation, the appreciation of the value of the home, the home equity deductions, deductible expenses. Keep in mind that home ownership, while critical, it provides a safety net. It provides, again, ownership. In the context of investments and businesses, it's important to consider the home as another asset class from a financial standpoint. As an investment, historically, homes don't grow in value historically as high as traditional stock market investing, but they do provide stability and provide a safety net that's also critical in the wealth building process, but also the ability to transfer property from generation to generation is also a critical component of wealth building and creating and maintaining intergenerational wealth. Let me see, I'm going to jump to the Q&A real quick before I go on to the last topic. Sounds like the real estate market is going up, up, up for sellers. Any fear that we might be headed for a real estate bubble again? Good question, Amy. I would say that everything is cyclical, right? There's a difference here. The main issue when we talk about real estate bubble and really what sort of caused the collapse in 2008 wasn't so much that real estate prices, that the real estate market was going up, but that banks there was a glut of substandard loans that were out there, and the loans, there were a lot of predatory loans that were out there. There were people that were getting loans that probably shouldn't have gotten the loans they got, and when the significant numbers of mortgage loans defaulted, it really caused the collapse in the housing market. But as far as the value of homes going up, up, and up, that's more of a cyclical thing. Home prices go up and it becomes a seller's market like what we have now, and then it cycles back down and values come down, and then it becomes a buyer's market. So it's more of a cyclical thing. I don't necessarily see it as a bubble that's going to collapse, but more as just like the stock market, the market goes up and then it retracts. It grows and it retracts, and so right now we're peaking and it will eventually retract. And so don't necessarily, hopefully, foresee a big collapse. Stranger things have happened. But the last bit that I wanted to cover today really deals with life insurance. And to go back to the point that I made earlier, is that, you know, when we talk about the wealth gap, white families receive much larger inheritances on average than Black families. And going back to the point that the economist made about inheritances and intergenerational transfers accounting for more of the racial wealth gap than any other demographic or socioeconomic indicator. And, you know, what's important about life insurance is that we may not have the means or the ability or you know, the wherewithal to create a business. Some of us, we may not have a business idea. We may not have, that may not be something that's in our DNA, and that's totally fine. A lot of us have great jobs, and we're able to provide for our families. You know, we can all invest, but we may be starting at different points. Some people may be starting from scratch and may not necessarily have the time to create wealth. And some of us may not have the ability to purchase property. All those things may be true. But we all have the ability to purchase a life insurance policy. You know, pretty much life insurance policies, you can create significant amounts of, or amass significant amounts of dollars by pennies on the dollar and what would be considered a life insurance premium. So what are some of the benefits? What does life insurance do? I mean, the most critical thing it does is it allows you to provide money for the people you love, for your children, for your grandchildren. You're able to leave a legacy. You know, depending on the type of policy, you can create some tax-free income to support your own retirement. Life insurance isn't always just for after you die. There are actually a lot of living benefits built into life insurance to not only provide tax-free income if you're alive and healthy and retired, but also can provide money if you do have a long-term care need or some type of need where you get sick. And again, one of those things that could potentially financially wipe you out in a day, the cash inside of a life insurance policy can help protect you against that. Life insurance passes on to the next generation, generally tax-free, meaning that when we start talking about intergenerational wealth transfers, life insurance is one of those resources that passes on tax-free. And so again, having as a community, having the vision and the foresight to provide for our future generation in a tax-free way is critical and can be easily done with life insurance. And then finally, depending on if you're an entrepreneur, having a life insurance policy from a business standpoint, having business insurance can also protect your business, especially if you have a business partner or a key employee. You can, you know, get key person insurance to help protect the business in the event that a critical employee, a critical leader in the business passes away. So there are a lot of uses for life insurance. But, you know, we as a community really have to get over, in a lot of cases, get over our own baggage and dispel the myths of life insurance in our community. You know, I've heard it all from, you know, I don't want my wife to get a bunch of money so she can go and spend it with another man. I actually had somebody tell me that, you know, or the concepts of, you know, my family or the Lord will provide. Or, you know, people saying, oh, I just need enough money to bury me. I don't need any more than, you know, just some dollars. Let me get, you know, $10,000 or $15,000 of life insurance so that I can bury myself. Or, you know, I don't need to leave any money to my kids. You know, I've heard, those are things that I have heard over the years. And there are a lot of myths when it comes to life insurance. I don't need this person. You know, this person's just here to sell me some insurance. We have to get away from those statements and really understand that if we're talking about building wealth within our communities, life insurance is an easy way to do it. And if you think about it, in terms of how much insurance coverage people get, right? You know, in some cases, people may just want to get a couple $1,000s or $5,000 or $10,000 just to bury themselves, you know, or just a $50,000 policy, you know, for whatever reason. Or if you think of what if you increase that to $100,000, or you think about how transformative to your kids and your grandkids that $1 million of tax-free life insurance as an inheritance would be for your future generations, for your children and for your children's children. That's what other communities do. You know, in a lot of cases, think about what if we didn't start from scratch in every generation, but we actually created legacies through life insurance to benefit the next generation. And then the next generation does that, and the next generation. So, you know, even though, you know, depending on where we are in our financial picture today, we may not see that today, but if we think about our communities and our children and our children's children, life insurance is a critical way that you not only build those that intergenerational wealth, but the way that you build your own legacy. One of the people that I follow quite a bit is Eugene Mitchell, and he has the plan or a concept. I guess one of the original people I heard talk about this, about working through life insurance agents around the country to have, I believe the number is 15 or to $20 billion of life insurance premiums specifically in the Black community, and what that will do for our future generations. And he has this quote that rich people plan for the next 3 generations, poor people plan for Saturday night. But again, if we can get away from those myths of what life insurance is, or what we think it is, or that it's expensive or whatever, we can use that tool to significantly grow our future generations. And so I will close with this. The first most critical thing that we need to do is make a plan. As you're going through your wealth building or your wealth building ideas, make a plan and start with your end goal in mind. And don't be afraid to seek help. Be helpable. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are advisors out there who can help you put your plan in place and put action steps to help get you through the budgeting process, and get through the insurance process, and get through the investment management and the real estate process and the mortgage lending and all of those things. We have to feel comfortable about seeking help. And then we have to live within our means, make sure that we have adequate budgeting to make sure that we're not running up a whole bunch of debt. And if we do have debt, to try to pay it down as quickly as possible, so that we can save and invest and buy property and do all those other things. And of course, buy life insurance and buy it with the open mind that we're creating wealth for our future generations. So with that, happy Pride Month to everyone as well. But with that, I'll say thank you. I appreciate the opportunity again. And I'll just check and see if there are any more questions. And
we'll have a Q&A too. We will have some more Q&A as well.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for that insightful keynote speech. I definitely appreciate the research and the visuals that you were able to provide. A lot of great information, and we look forward to you joining the solutions panel as well. We have an exciting panel for this second half, where we'll talk about intergenerational wealth and building wealth in the Black community. We have this panel of accomplished individuals. Ms. Lauren Ruffin, I want to make sure, yes, is here. Ms. Hanifa Wilson, Mr. Ralph Mims, Mr. Bernard Rogers, Chad Cooper, who we just heard speak, will also be on the panel, and Mr. Ken Carson as well. And I believe everyone is here. I do see your names here. So welcome to our esteemed panel. The first thing I'll do is have everyone on the panel introduce yourselves just with a brief introduction and also address an initial question. And so this initial topic is, why is building generational wealth in the Black community important to you? So if you could just kind of provide just a brief intro statement regarding that, that would be wonderful. And I can start with Ms. Lauren Ruffin.
Hey, everybody. Lauren Ruffin, moved to Albuquerque about 3 years ago from Washington, D.C., where I was a lobbyist and a fundraiser for about 15 years. I'm currently the co-CEO of an organization called Fractured Atlas, which is the largest association of artists in the country. We build infrastructure, financial infrastructure for artists, and do about $30 million a year in business, making sure that artists can have access to, grant dollars they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. I founded Crux, which is a cooperative of Black artists working in digital technologies and immersive storytelling a couple of years ago. It's based here in Albuquerque, and we work with large companies, helping them do digital strategy and build audience engagement opportunities. And you want me to answer that question about generational wealth?
Sure, just why it's important to you to build generational wealth in the Black community.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be 40 this year, and my father is not going to leave me anything. I'm just trying to get him not leave with any debt. He's got a big house that's, I'm gonna have to do a lot to it because he's gonna live to be 90 or 100. So, for me, when I'm thinking about generational wealth, it's pretty personal. I've worked really hard to not have a whole bunch of debt, but communicating with my father and my aunt about sort of the things I would love for them to do to not leave me in the hole, I think is just conversation we have to really continue to have. And Mr. Cooper, I really appreciated your insights on that. It touched a chord for me.
Absolutely, thank you. Ms. Hannaford Wilson, if you could be the next to speak. Oh, you're on mute, sorry. Okay, she needs to unmute.
Okay, here we go. It wasn't allowing me to unmute for a moment. But hello, everyone. My name is Hanifa Wilson. I recently became a real estate investor, but have been investing in stocks for a few years now. I'm originally from New Jersey, but decided to take the leap to invest into New Mexico. So I just recently bought a home there that I'm actually closing on tomorrow. Also, I work for the company audible.com as of right now. So that is my current 9 to 5, which I am hoping to actually transition into full entrepreneurship by the beginning of 2022. So why is building generational wealth important for me? It's very important to me because during my life, I found that one of the most important things to me was to see my family in a better financial position. So I come from a family that started from very humble beginnings. I lost both my parents, just recently lost my mom about a month ago. And through that process, my parents didn't leave any of us any generational wealth. So we all were pretty much started from scratch. And I didn't want that to be the case for any future children that I have, or even when it comes to my younger siblings. So that's what started me on this journey.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ralph Mims, good to see you today. And if you would go next, that'd be great.
Well, Jerron, it's been a while, brother. How you doing? Well, my name is Ralph Mims. I actually have two companies. The first one is Palmetto LLC, which is a real estate company. We are heavy real estate investors. We own up to 40 properties, may it be that we manage and own. We own land. We also own properties internationally in the Caribbean, in the island of Antigua and Barbuda, and it's also in Jamaica. Also, my other company is the RMIMS World Group. RMIMS World Group is an economic development company that is based in Antigua and Barbuda, where I have dual citizenship. And I tell every Black person, you need to have dual citizenship. Okay, that's another sidebar. Okay, so it's based in Antigua and Jamaica. I'm also a citizen of the Bahamas. I was born in Nassau. Question is, why is generation, I'm also from the Bronx, from Boogie Down Bronx. So, and I went to Howard University also, late in the middle. So why is generational wealth important? Because you need to have a legacy. You know, we've been in real estate over 50 years. We started in 1970. My mother's an immigrant from the Caribbean. She raised 3 kids, put 2 kids through college through real estate. So she had 3 things against her. She was an immigrant Black woman. 2 things, a woman and an immigrant. Okay, especially during the 50s and the 60s. So she basically put us through college. And real estate is a great avenue. You can pass down wealth. With your job, you cannot pass down wealth. You have a job. So you need to own businesses. You need to own real estate. You need to own property to pass down wealth. So generational wealth through real estate is very important to me.
All right, thank you. The next is Mr. Bernard Rogers. If you would please give your intro. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you very
You're on mute again. You're still on mute. Mr. Rogers, we still can't hear you. There you go.
Come on, there we go. I'm sorry, folks, again. What a morning for me. Hey, again, I want to thank Teresa for letting me be a part of this panel. Again, Bernard Rogers is my name. I am born and raised in Saginaw, Michigan, and floated out to New Mexico as attended University of Michigan, and I transferred out to New Mexico Highlands University to get an education because when you're home, you party too much. So I moved out here to finish my education. Once I finished my social work degree, I decided that social work was not what I wanted to do just by doing some field placement, but my business was my minor, and I decided business is what I wanted to do. I was a police officer also. No, that's a good thing now. I mean, I was one of those good police officers there. I got good ones out there. And I also was a manager with United Parcel Service, UPS, for 18 years. And after working for companies like that, I decided to go into business for myself. And we've talked a lot about that today because there's freedom in that. Why building generational wealth is important to me is because I've always been the proponent that history is kept for a reason so that you don't make the same mistakes. I've saw people in my family work themselves to death. And they left this planet and did not pass anything on to their descendants. And that cycle has to be broken. So I think through things like this and just education, that can be done. So that's why it's so important to me that we do that.
All right, thank you, sir.
You got it.
All right, Mr. Chad Cooper, we know you gave your talk earlier. You can still go ahead and give a little opinion on your thoughts.
Sure. I already did the bio, but this issue really is important for me. Having, I attended a lot of private schools, and I saw kids who came through these schools with this intergenerational wealth, and how much easier their lives were. And how much easier would it have been for people in my family, my brothers, my sisters, for me, if we didn't really start from the beginning. And the more that we can do to help our kids and our grandkids not start from the beginning and have that leg up, right? It's all about, we can go back through all these years of history, and it really all boils down to, we don't have that leg up. So the more that we can do to have a leg up for the next generation, is critical.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Ken Carson, if you would provide your introduction, please. Good to see you, sir.
Okay, nice seeing you. Okay, well, Ken Carson, I'm born and raised here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When I went to school down at New Mexico State to obtain a finance degree. As I went through school, I found finance and ended up doing co-op, worked in school as a bank manager, management trainee, And then on the last job that I had, I worked as a bank examiner with the federal government. Excuse me. Good experience. I came out as a bank examiner. I moved after 5 years to a bank. After I was with that bank, it started having problems. So I moved to another bank and then was lucky enough to be selected and appointed by Governor Carruthers as Deputy Director of the Banking Department for the state of New Mexico. This was when I was about 27. Right around 30, they appointed me as Director of the Banking Department for the state of New Mexico. After that, worked there about 7 years, reappointed by Governor King. And from there, went off to go work for a bank as bank president for the Bank of Berlin. And it was a startup bank that when I started, it was 7 million in assets. By the time we finished, we had 5 branches and 150 million in assets. Unfortunately, the board started fighting. There was a shareholder fight. I ended up on the wrong side. The good guys, I always say the good guys lost the shareholders meeting. The ones that won were very Machiavellian and decided that I didn't need to stay. So I left. It was good to leave. The good thing is that during that period of time, I had stock options with the bank, and that allowed me to be able to have money saved. And I was able to sell my stock right before the crisis, the financial crisis. And I used that money to start Nexus Brewery and Restaurant. From there, we've been in business for 10 years. We've been featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. We have 2 restaurants right now, the main location at Pan American Freeway. And we also invested down in the South Broadway area. And I bought the old Elks Club, and we have a barbecue place there. So things have, so on generational wealth, our family's been lucky enough. My parents did leave money behind. Now, I didn't use any of that. I didn't get any of that money that they left behind until later on, until recently, really. But because the way that I started the business was through the work that I did, through the job that I had. But I was lucky because my dad was very conscientious about saving. He managed to pay off his house as he retired. And so he had no debt on that. And so basically the wealth that was transferred came primarily from the real estate that he had. And he passed that on to us, me and my brother and sister. And then we also, their grandkids, he also had a provision in there where the grandkids got 1/4 of the money that he had left behind, he and my mom. It's not big money. It's not in that big category of the million or anything like that, but it was still helpful. It also helped really kind of put a cash injection into my business. So I'm really happy for that. The way I feel about it is generational wealth, the need to have that. It's the only time, that's the only way we're going to become equal at some point. We're not going to be equal until such time as we have the wealth and the resources that the others have. Now, I know that we're way behind, but that doesn't stop us from trying. I was pleased to see what Chad had presented in his presentation, to at least have some kind of goal to look at for the top 10%. I think that 1.8 million, if you're not looking at that, you should be, because that's where the peers are. That's where the people that have inherited, the kids that had the resources from their parents, that's where they are. And sometimes we don't even recognize those aren't the people that we know, and we don't recognize how far ahead they are. But I think that if you can identify, this is where I need to go, and set your goal off for it. At least that's what I'm trying to do. I want to be in that 10%. I want to be up above that, because even at the 10% level, I don't even know if I consider that wealthy. Wealth is like when you start having Jeff Bezos money and stuff like that. So anyway, that's my feeling toward the whole subject. So
okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Carson. And before we get to the next question, I mean, I can just think of a takeaway. You mentioned Chad Cooper's presentation, and he gave a lot of great information. One of the slides that struck me, though, was the 4 boxes where he had investing, business, property, life insurance. And Lord knows you could do an entire conference on any of those, right? So there are so many different ways, right, in which you can build wealth. And a lot of it oftentimes depend on your personal situation, your tolerance for risk, and all those things. So that leads to the next question for each of the panelists. What strategies are you yourself using to build wealth, and how are you helping others within the community to do the same? And so this will get more into the personal experiences and successes that you all can speak to. And we can go pretty much in the same order as before with Ms. Ruffin starting us off.
Yeah, I mean, people make fun of me in life insurance. I've had $1 million life insurance policy since I was like 23 years old. Law school is just 3 years of hearing all the dumb shit people do and how they get hurt from it and how insurance matters. So I got really paranoid. So everything I have is insured, from me all the way down to like my 5 bikes. So that's one. I own property. I invest in stocks. You know, I've got a retirement account, so I do all that stuff. But I think the biggest sort of thing that I've done is really thinking about the business I'm starting and how they can be intergenerational wealth, not just for me, but for the people I know. I work, so, you know, I've started cooperatives. I'm gonna do a lot of solidarity economy work. So, you know, Crux is a cooperative. We've got 17 worker owners right now, all of them Black, all around the U.S. Highly talented people who got laid off last year for the most part. We banded together to go after large contracts for companies. So, you know, really just trying to make sure that people are thinking about ownership, and a lot of Black people, but most certainly Black artists don't think about intellectual property in their ownership. So we spend a lot of time thinking about legal contracting, you know, how we're pricing our work and valuing our labor. And at the end of the day, you know, we're on track this year to do about, you know, between $1.5 million and $2 million worth of business. If we can get a 20% margin on that, that means at the end of the year that our worker owners are sort of splitting an extra, you know, 10 to 20 grand at the end of the year, just based on our profit and our dividends. So, and they can do what they want with that. That just becomes extra sort of income for work that they're doing mostly part-time. Oh, my beehive is getting at me. So, I mean, those are the sorts of longer term strategies I'm using to build wealth in the community. And, you know, as we grow, we'll continue to have ownership opportunities for folks. We're going to expand into real estate development and investment, and a couple of other industries as we grow and take that revenue and roll it into other categories.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hanifa Wilson, would you go next?
Yes, so some of the strategies that I've been using to definitely build generational wealth, we're definitely on Chad's chart. So property ownership, investing, also business and everything like that. So I've been using a lot of different techniques. I started off very, very small, and I tell that to a lot of people all the time. You don't need a lot to start. And the quicker you start, the better it is, or the earlier you start, the better it is. So I actually got into investing when I was around the age of 23. I started to work for an insurance company. And they basically preach the rule of have your savings, invest your savings, and have your insurance policy that also protects your family. So instead of calling it life insurance, they actually called it income protection, because it basically protects your income for when you're no longer with your family. So I started that way. So I got a life insurance policy, and I started to invest into a retirement account on my own. When I transitioned from that insurance company into where I work now, I knew that it was important for me to take part of the money that I was making with that job and using it strictly for investment purposes. So I adopted the mentality of living below my means now so that I could live within my means and live a very comfortable life later. I'm also working on a FIRE journey as well, because I want to retire early. So I want to retire by the age of 40. So I have 9 good years left in me until I get there. And I'm definitely moving full steam ahead to make that goal a reality. As far as my real estate investing, I got into that when I was actually introduced to Ralph Mims, who's also on the panel, because he worked as the economic developer in New Mexico in Los Lunas. And he was introduced to me by a friend of mine, and he stressed the importance of investing in real estate, not just in your community, but in other communities around the country where breaking into that opportunity wasn't as hard. I'm from the state of New Jersey, where your property taxes can literally match the amount of your mortgage. So it's a little bit more difficult to break into that real estate market versus somewhere like New Mexico, which has a lot of untapped potential. So those are the ways that I invest in, building generational wealth, as long as stocks and index funds and things like that as well. So there are a lot of different things that I have my hands in all at once.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I pay rent in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and I don't miss that at all. I can assure you. All right, Mr. Mims, I'm gonna put this 2-minute max on you because I know
I talk a lot.
But we do have
I'm
to
gonna
make
talk
sure.
fast.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk fast, and you can cut me off. So, Ralph Mims, I was very fortunate. I came from a culture in the Bronx. I grew up in an immigrant household, immigrant neighborhood where everyone owned their own homes. That is very important. None of us were renters. We owned our own homes, and we basically grew up in that culture. Being from the Caribbean, no one rents down there. You have your own home. So when you come to America, you basically want to be a homeowner when you come to these shores here. And I have to take a shout out to a lot of these immigrant women, Black women from the islands. They are a total gangster, man. Let me tell you what, they are owning properties, fourplexes in the Bronx, and these are single women that have done it on their own. I just retired from the city of Albuquerque. I'm finally off the plantation, thank goodness. I retired December 31st of this year, and I always did real estate on the side. I always had a hustle, but it's not a hustle, it's a business. I don't see how people could just survive on one job. I don't know how they do it, but that's your personal choice if you want to do it. So, from 1970 to now, we did own properties. We always had rentals. We always had cash flow. We always had property. Chad would love this. We have life insurance, annuities, mutual fund through Gateway. So, we're pretty much vested in other stuff besides just real estate. So basically, New Mexico is a great untapped market for real estate. It is cheap. It's off the radar. Nobody knows where New Mexico is. And it's a great place to invest. Yeah, it's true. It's great. You don't want to be invested in a lot of our people, and Joran, you can cut me off. A lot of our people live on the East and West Coast where real estate is outrageous. We need to move out of those areas. You'll be a renter for the rest of your life. You can live in New York, New Jersey, and Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So New Mexico is a great market for real estate because it's cheaper. We need to look beyond the social aspects about being around. Okay, there's a big population of Black people there. We need to go to make money. We need to be in an area where we can make money. And last thing, Gerard, give me 10 seconds. During COVID-19, we paid off 3 mortgages because we weren't going anywhere. We saved our money, 3 mortgages. So that's cash flow for my dream to live in the Caribbean.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Rogers, if you could address the question next, what strategies are you using to build wealth and how are you helping others?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, pretty much piggyback on what Ralph said there, when you're on the plantation and, they give you weekends off just so you come back, they give you vacation so they think you're free, but you have a lot of debt. So when I got involved with Primerica, it was as a client. I wanted to, I worked with UPS. I made great money. I was account representative. I had the whole northern part of the state was my clients. I had over 2,500 clients that I visited daily, not daily, but some monthly and so forth and so on. But I had debt, and I knew that if I didn't get rid of that $275,000 worth of debt, and if I took that into retirement, it was not going to be good. So as a client with Primerica, I was able to put all these strategies into place: life insurance, investments, mutual funds, annuities, started to for over the last 23 years, and then having worked for a great company like UPS. I'm just saying it's not a great company. We had stock options there too, but I was not an owner of my time. And I would rather own my time than have an employer own it and tell me when I had to get up, when I had to go to sleep, when I had to wake up, when I could take a vacation. So all those strategies that I employ with Primerica as a business owner now, I was able to take that my plan and turn that into my own business. So I started spreading this plan and that information out to all my friends, whoever would listen to me, because they saw what I was able to do and said, you know what, man, I wish I'd have done that. You told me to do that 5 years ago, but I'm looking at you now and I wish I'd have done that. Yeah, wish, would, could. You know, there's a lot of people out there that do that.
Yeah.
But the first thing I did was get a plan. That plan is just what Chad talked about. Get that plan in place so you know what you have to do. And that's what I do. I put plans together for people to reach those goals that we talked about. So I'm doing exactly what Chad said earlier, and that is plan. You had to have a plan.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to skip Mr. Cooper, obviously based on all the things he shared with us already. I'm going to go to Mr. Carson. If you could wrap this question up for us, what strategies are you using?
Okay, just real quick, one of the things that my first strategy was to get a federal government job and to retire happy. That's what the plan was. I deviated, that's what my parents had always told me to do. I deviated from that when I went to the state because, and then at that point I had instability as far as employment. So that's when I started taking risk. As far as taking the risk, I've invested just about everything that I have into the business. But the good thing is, through capitalizing the business the way I have, what's happened is I've been able to branch out and buy real estate with it, which is coming through the business. So my wealth building is within my business and using the resources and the cash flow from the business to make investments like the real estate, make investments in additional properties to open up. And I think that's the way to do it. I watched my customers when I was a banker. I didn't realize that what about working for yourself, getting a salary, and then having it pay for everything that I have to acquire all the assets. So like the brewing equipment, the tables, the chairs, the cooking equipment, the building down on Broadway, all that's been paid for at the same time while I was drawing a salary. And that's why you need to go ahead and think about starting your own business or being in business yourself. Not to discount anything on the investing, because those are other businesses that are also generating separate income.
All right, thank you. And I know we're getting towards the end here in terms of time. I wanted to ask Ms. Whitfield or any of the facilitators from OAAA if there are any questions that may have come in that I might have missed from anyone.
We're good, Dr. Campbell.
Okay, all right. All right, so, all right, no, we're getting towards the end in terms of time. So the last question here was the key ingredients to closing the wealth gap. And obviously some of this has been addressed, but I want to know if there maybe a couple of you have any final thoughts based on what it would really take, the key ingredient it would take to close the wealth gap between Black and white in America. Because as we saw from the data that Chad shared, it's still an issue, it's been an issue. A lot of what we're sharing today, you could have saw a panel 30 years ago and some of the same thoughts were being expressed, right? So in terms of like action that you would think that are really important to be done, can you give a couple of thoughts? Is there anybody that can raise your hand to see who? Okay. All right, Miss Hanifa, I'll go ahead and give you a chance.
Okay. So one of the key ingredients, I believe, to bridging that gap is group economics. Try saying that 10 times fast. Group economics, because as we can see, we are already behind when it comes to how much wealth we actually control within this country. But we spend the most in this country. If we took that same energy and our spending dollar and practice group economics amongst ourselves, I think we would be on the road to closing that wealth gap. It wouldn't be the only thing that we had to do, but I think that would be a great start.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think most would agree with that. Mr. Rogers, did I see your hand or no?
Yeah, that is
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead, bro.
an excellent thought. One of the big proponents that I am is education. That's educating ourselves so that we pass that education down to the next generation. Because understanding how money works is the key to changing this whole picture that we have. Because as the African American community, we were never taught that. We were never taught how money works. We were taught how to spend it, how to go borrow it, but we were not taught how to make money work for us. In investment, money works 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Don't take breaks, don't take bathroom breaks. We have to learn that and we have to pass it on.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mims, I'll let you close with the final thought.
No, I think that, what's important is mentoring and networking. You know, we got to be around the right people. You know, some of your family members, they're fine, but sometimes family could be an inheritance and sometimes friends. So I think surrounding yourself with the right people is very important. A good book to read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you know Robert Kiyosaki. Talks about mindset. It doesn't tell you how to invest in real estate, but it's to take risks. And a lot of times why people are not in business and they stay on a job is because they're scared to take risks. They're scared to go forward and do what they have to do to go in business. So, you know, you got to be aggressive. You have to take risks, and, you know, you have to build your cash flow. Cash flow is very important. Once all the bills are paid, you have to have cash flow. And then what I stress, and the last thing I stress on our people to invest globally, internationally, not just here in the United States. There's so much opportunities in the Caribbean, Africa, and those places there. I have 3 citizenship. I'm a Jamaican, I'm from the Bahamas, and I'm an Antiguan. I have US citizenship. I have 4 passports. So we need to do that. You need to be a nomad capitalist and look at the opportunity. We got a big world out there. Don't limit yourself.
All right,
Dr. Campbell, I was going to say something because it strikes me that everything we're talking about is really within the existing structures. And I just, you know, I have questions about whether Black folks are going to be able to succeed as a people if we continue to play by rules that white folks have made for us.
Absolutely.
And so some of the things that I'm thinking about right now are, and Ken and I had a great conversation last week about some of these things, you know, using technology to really build things that allow us to do character-based lending, to embed peer-to-peer lending practices within our communities. And I'm about to start a fellowship where I'm doing a lot of research around the 5 C's of credit, and rethinking them, coming up with a structure where it's really about repatriation and rematriation. How do we set our communities up to be able to access resources? Because the 5 C's of credit are crap. There's no reason why you should only be able to get credit when you don't need it. There's no reason why, why we know. I started my career working at homeless shelters. The very last thing people won't pay for is their rent or their mortgage. They'll go without food, they'll go without medicine, anything else. So there's no reason why we should have such a high barrier for home ownership, because we know that if they have the money to pay for it, they're going to pay for it. So I really, you know, for me, I didn't want to leave without talking about some of the structures. It's all great, and I want to be sure that we're really thinking about the structural changes we have to make in terms of mindset and pushing back on white supremacy and the damage that's done in our communities with regard to being able to access capital.
All right, thank you. I definitely agree with that. I think many others would as well. And I'll let that be the final comment from the panel. I did want to just mention one thing. I mean, just that I got out of this is that perception is not reality, right? You know, we look at ourselves sometimes as underdogs. We say other groups are just smarter and they just have more and things like that. But at the end of the day, this group proves, you know, that knowledge and work ethic and things like that, they matter, you know, learning, taking advantage of the resources that are out there, many of which are free, and just being willing to do the work required to pursue your dreams, whether it's within the box or without, you know, is just important. So I just really want to thank you all for your thoughts, for your insights, and for sharing your experiences with this on this panel. I want to thank the Ms. Teresa Carson, of course, for her work with this program today, and also the Office of African American Affairs. And with that, I think I should turn it over to Ms. Amy Whitfield, who's the Director of the Office of African American Affairs.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Cynthia Jacobs, the Special Projects Coordinator for the Office of African American Affairs. And I'm actually going to fill in for Amy for the close. She had to step away. But I just wanted to sincerely thank each and every one of you, to our keynote speakers, our generational wealth and entrepreneurship panelists, our moderators, and all our guests. We couldn't do this kind of thing without each of you. And so we're so grateful that you were able to be here with us. And I also want to give a special thank you to Teresa Carson as well, of the African American Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, for co-sponsoring and co-hosting this event with us. And so we also like to do another thank you for some of our supporters who helped to promote and advertise this event for us. So Mr. Jim Harvey of the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, the New Mexico Economic Development Department, the Health Equity Council, Dr. Lisa Taylor of the UNM College of Nursing, and Umoja Wellness and MMOT, all for supporting our event. So I hope everyone got a lot of great information today and feel inspired and encouraged, and you now have resources too, if you didn't know about them before, that you can reach out to and tap into. So we want to thank you all for being with us today, and have a beautiful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.